Here. Hold on, just this one. It's in the.
See, right now, it sounds like people talking among themselves and not really speaking in a mic so everybody could hear.
That is indeed what's happening.
Okay, so if every speaker really speaks into the mic, maybe that will help everyone hear. Okay,
Thank you. Here's the thing. You wanna? Well, not much I can do.
We are recording. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I want to welcome everybody to the Manhattan Community Board 1 Transportation and Street Activity Permit Committee for July 2023. I'm Betty Kay, the chair of the committee. I'm joined by Jess Coleman, the co-chair. Also by Onesh James, who is the office person who from CV1 who works with this committee. And if we can go to the agenda, I think we're ready because we're already overdue to start with our first presentation. Oh, first I just want to welcome everybody because it is the holidays. But to let you know that, yeah, there was a lot from our mayor as well as council, as well as keeping things going on. From Castle Clinton, so some sites from our own district. Next, the Oculus from the Port Authority. And from Battery Park City. So yeah, we were kind of greetings from everybody on Twitter. So thank you for showing up on a holiday week. And from the DOT, of course, because they are our main agency that we deal with. The agenda tonight has 5 items on it. I'm going to start with Drama Tours Inc., which is doing business as The Ride. And they have 2 bus stop requests on its single tour route. The route was done previous, well, you'll get to hear all the details for that. So let's go to the next slide and start with them. And here we have Ovid Falkowitz is here to represent Drama Tours. But since he was kind enough to come on vacation, it was very hard to schedule this because of it being a holiday week. I have some slides to go through what the DOT has already told us about it, as well as some other things that he's aware of. So let's look through some of the slides. This is the tour that will be implemented. It was implemented in the past by a group called Experience the Ride, which Drama Tours and The Ride has purchased. You can see it's all in the east. Excuse me, if you go back and only change slides when I ask you to. Thanks. Okay, so the tour, that is all on the east side. As you can see, but it does actually end, so it starts in our district, but it actually ends, and CB2 is going to be hearing this, which is why we're on a time crunch, because their transportation committee always meets on this day of the month. And so he is going to talk to them about the last stop or the finish of this particular tour. We're going to talk about 2 of these 3 are going to be discussions tonight. So next. Thanks. Information from the DOT, which I can only see part of because I see faces on the rest. But it's Drama Tours doing business with The Ride. The location of the first stop is on Water Street near John Street. It is in front of 200 Water Street. The number of pickups and drop-offs, they're asking for Monday through Sunday, so every day of the week from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. The stops are on the hour on this particular stop. They're every hour. And this particular stop, since it's the first one of the route, it will be on the hour. The current parking regulations at this particular location, bus stop. So there's experience. This has been a bus stop. It has 2 MTA routes. 3. The MTA has the M15, the QM11, and the QM25 all stop at this particular bus stop. There are 2 bus stops on this particular block. It is also signposted by Experience the Ride, which again, as I've said, Drama Tours has purchased that and is running that tour. So there's no real change whatsoever in the activity at this particular stop. The sidewalk width is 12 feet as released by the DOT, which is considered certainly wide enough for the crowds of people moving on and off buses. And the MTA, of course, has a much bigger crowd. And the land use in that area is all commercial. That's right, this is DOT information. Next. This is a picture that shows you the block where the connection buses stop is the first bus stop on the block. But that is not where they're stopping. If you look farther into the frame, closer to John Street, you'll see a second bus stop where there's a black car illegally parked. That's the bus stop that we're talking about tonight. If you go to the next one, it's a close-up of the actual, it's this one. As you can see, it's signposted for 3 MTA buses and Experience the Ride, which will be switched over to The Ride as this group is authorized. You'll also see, I got some questions from people, a bunch of, it's not really street furniture, it's more, there's some furniture, there are some plantings and other things. Those are existing, they are allowed, and the concern I got this from Alice was that people would be able to go out and take coffee or other things outside and be able to eat. And there's no attempt to remove any of this furniture. It's out there. Next. Okay, this is the next stop. So are there any, does Mr. Balfour have anything you'd like to add about this particular stop before questions? All right.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. So I think you explained it very well. Besides this one little glitch, Tuesdays we don't run. We actually run just 6 days a week. Tuesdays we do not run. I don't know why DOT has it Tuesday, but Tuesday we not run. There are 5. So let me just go a little bit. There was a company called Experience the Rides. They have a vehicle that is pretty much like a movie theater. There is a limited passengers on it. We have several different rides. Some of them, most of them are actually in Midtown Manhattan. Some of them include Upper East Side Manhattan. And this is a Lower East Side ride. It runs about from 60 minutes to 75 minutes, depending. It is requested for 5 times a day. That includes pickups and drop-offs. And it happens to be the stop that we're discussing. This is somewhere mid-ride, so there isn't actually a big crowd coming on and off for these. I would say average somewhere from 10 to 15 would be boarding or disboarding from this bus at this stop. 5 times. Sure. And just a little bit of information, Experience the Ride was an existing company running for several years. Post-COVID, they did not operate. We bought off that company. Nothing was changed for the company. We haven't done any change. We haven't requested any additional stops, any additional timings. It runs pretty much the same way. It's a very low-key bus. What I mean by that, it doesn't block traffic. Actually, it runs 5 to 10 miles an hour. It's a slow-moving pace going through Lower East Side, observing the East Side, and they all talk about the East Side. That's pretty much it.
Great, are there hands up? Can you see any? Well, then Eric's in the room, so who'd like to speak?
Yeah, I saw from the route map that this bus route would be going on Canal and making a left as it heads westbound. The DOT was okay with that, and I'm also concerned. I didn't know that there's a left. You can make a left turn on Canal heading westbound.
You can, if you're coming across Bowery.
Going westbound, I think past Lafayette.
If you're on Canals, you can make a left onto Lafayette Broadway.
Okay.
Do you mind showing the map again?
So I'm concerned about the traffic there, and then another vehicle making a left turn across Canal.
Are they making a left turn or right turn?
We're making a right turn. There's a little bit of
Oh, that's
confusion.
right.
It's a right turn actually on Canal.
Thank you. Okay, that makes sense.
There should be a left turn signal on Lafayette Broadway to make things a lot easier, but that's another story.
Okay.
Yes, Tammy. No, we do committee first. Since you voted, and remote's going last. I mean, the remote people go after her, yes.
Okay, is this the only route that you are doing, or are you also going to be doing, the routes that went by World Trade Center and through Battery Park City and Tribeca?
No, so in Lower East Side, this is the only route we'll be doing, the Lower East Side. We do have, like I mentioned, we do have in the Midtown and we have Upper East Side, Manhattan, but this is, as far as the Lower East Side, this is the only route.
Do you intend to expand the route to do on the west side?
No, I can't say I wish. I mean, it depends on business, but for now, we have no plan to do that for now.
And are you doing the same type of experience that the ride had before with the actors who were on the streets?
So it's pretty funny because I get asked the same question for every community board. So what we have done, first of all, for this particular one, we're not gonna have any actors on the street. Even for our Midtown, what we've done for our actors on the street, our vehicle does not stop anymore. They slow down to the traffic light, and as soon as the traffic light changes, they keep on going. So there's no like stopover for a few minutes to wait for entertainment and interrupt any traffic. We have changed that part.
And where on the route will you have the actors?
On this route, we don't have any actors. On the Midtown route, we will have any actors. We don't have any actors on this route.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then a Pat, let's see.
Yeah, some of what I want to know, because we remember when this bus started and there were a lot of issues in the community with this bus and traffic. So since Tammy has, those questions have been answered, then my question is, so the buses are where they're not going to sit in the bus stop and idle, correct?
Absolutely not. So if you're aware, since COVID, the city has been very, very strict about this. The only exemption is pretty much loading and unloading. Otherwise, we have to abide by the 3-minute rule, which we actually, our buses right now are designed, if the bus is on a low idle, will shut off after 3 minutes. So there won't be any idling. And especially for this stop, this stop is mid-route. So, I mean, the bus will keep on going. So it will never exceed more than 5 minutes. That's for sure.
And if you decide at some point to bring back the actors and change the route and go over to the west side, will you come back and let us know before you do that?
Of course, we will have to request additional stops, and we don't have any, so we'll have to come in front of the community board again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, if there are no other hands up, then let's go back to the slides and continue on to the second stop, which is on Broadway. It's in front of 391 Broadway in Tribeca. This is, like I said, it's kind of in the middle of the route. It's on Broadway between Walker and White Street, but it's closer to Walker Street. The number of pickups and drop-offs again, is it also going to be the same thing with no Tuesdays?
That is correct, yeah.
So other than that, they have been cleared for every day of the week, but as we've heard, they're going to not go on Tuesdays. The current parking regulation here is very similar. It's no standing, existing bus stop, and this is the MTA Express 27 and Express 28, as well as Experience the Ride, which again, they are replacing. And the sidewalk width, again, is 12 feet, and again, the land use is considered commercial. So the information that came from the DOT is very, very parallel to what it was at the first stop over on Water Street. Anyway, any questions?
I just have a quick, he had corrected about the Tuesday. He also mentioned there was just going to be 5 trips each day. So we might want to adjust from 11:20 to 9:20 would be 10 trips a day.
Well, I understand, but this is what the DOT has cleared them to do.
Right, but if he's agreeing to only 5 trips a day, I don't know, is this a stipulation that you want to put in, like, just like no Tuesdays?
You can decide, but isn't it that important? And two, he's been cleared with, he has the right to choose to change, not him personally. Company has the right to change if they decide that the call is more popular. They're starting it up again, and as he said, they're just trying to feel out for what the call is for interest in doing the ride. They don't want to lose money doing it. It ends at
Are you
9:20.
working for them?
It still ends at 9:20, so.
And I thought he was saying that as a positive thing.
That's how they're starting.
Well,
But to limit them, I don't think we have the right to do that anyway.
I didn't-
Just tell me the DOT is cleared it.
No, we don't have the right to. I was wondering if sometimes when somebody agrees to, like, on an earlier hour, it's an extreme analogy where they have the right to stay open until 2 a.m, but they say, we're gonna close at 11. Well, we'll put that in is just for a quality of life issue.
No, and I can mention that he has said for now,
Okay,
they are looking to
right.
do
I'm not asking
5 a
you
day.
to promise it. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, no, we conclude that that's where they're going to be, but I want to make clear that it's not a limitation.
Okay.
Brendan?
Actually, I would just like clarification from him on what the 5 times a day are going to be. Are they primarily, say, until 5-ish, or are they not all hour on hour?
So for right now, we have somewhere from about 11 to our last run about 8 o'clock at night. But like she said, that might change and depending on the season. It might go a little later. But for right now, our intent last pickup is about 8:15 p.m.
But that actually doesn't follow then the 5 times per day, because that's,
It's probably doing them less
Yeah,
often.
so I can give you the timings. For right now, we have about 11:20, 1:20, 3:20, 6:20, and about 8:20. So those are the timings right now.
thank you.
Yeah, Tammy?
So I just want to be very, very considerate. While Broadway is considered, quote, a commercial zone, exactly where you're talking about at 391 Broadway is a residential building.
I want to change the plans.
So if you look up, it's a cast iron pre-war locked building.
This is the block.
Yep, and it is,
Go to the next one. It shows the actual sign.
right.
We don't see.
But the buildings above are residential buildings. So I would really encourage you, if you are expanding the business, to look at earlier versus later hours, only because, you don't love people standing online later in the evening. I see it goes to 9:20, but just be
Actually,
cognizant.
so here's the thing. That's what I'm saying. All these stops are actually mid-route. The first stop is on Water and Drown. So the lines shouldn't be an issue. Our buses they're not typical tour buses right now, double-decker buses for that have lines of people and they check them in over there. All we do is at the max of loading at any of our stops is never more longer than 5 minutes. So as far as our bus goes, and none of our tickets are sold at the bus. They're all pre-sold online.
Okay, I just want to make sure you know that 200 Water is also a residential building. So it's just, they are commercial on street level with residential above, and just to be cognizant of that. Because we are mixed use community.
But as you can see, so the number of people who do the MTA buses that are stopping are much less.
Well, it has to be buses.
May I ask, were you serving food and beverage on the bus?
No, no,
Just gotta ask.
nah, we wouldn't have the time or the staff to clean after people. That wouldn't be possible. No. But it's
All right,
actually not a
thank
bad
you.
idea though, but it's not, no.
You allowed to use the bus only lane?
Yeah.
We're allowed, every city, every charter bus is allowed to use in every city, and only city, MTA shared line.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's generally emergency vehicles, disabled vehicles for disabled. Any kind of bus. Nobody else in the room with their hand up? Anybody online? Yes? Well, looks fairly good. Gonna move forward. This is what Paris looks like. In terms of resolution, what I'm hearing is no real objections to it, which in some ways makes sense because the DOT has cleared things as being within limits. They're not asking for any exceptions. We can either support or not support, which is both why they're both there, the request. And then it's, if you support Or it could be unless or if. But if there are people still concerned about a bus that slows or interferes with the movement of pedestrians, bicycles, and traffic, we can include that. So I kind of want to get some feedback from people about where they want to go.
Where's the bus lane on, not the bus lane, the bike lane on Broadway up there?
I don't think
I don't think there is, I don't think there is.
There's one, it,
Chambers.
right, yeah, it starts down below.
because there's an extension of the, like a path for what people waiting for the bus, it's kind of built out, you know, like into the,
Am I going to get any comments on this?
I think we should go to a
Well, I vote to approve, and the question is, do you even want to include that unless we approve unless the bus is slow or interfere? Or should I get rid of that?
I just want to, I guess, have it on record, but like, I'm honestly starting to get slightly nervous about all the tour buses on Broadway. And now we're adding to it in a company, well, not the company, but at a location that we've had previous issues with. So I'm a little tentative about this, knowing also there's probably more coming.
We've had issues.
Well, the
What
previous
she
one,
said that the previous company they've had issues with.
company had actors on the street,
Which they're not going to have.
which these guys aren't gonna have. So I think I would say yes if they don't. Me personally, because what happened was the buses would slow down. The actors would come off the sidewalk and entertain as the bus crawled along. And if the light was green, the bus went so slow that they needed to get that. But he said he's disconnected the actors from it. So I think it would be it agreed with you that I would love to see something that denotes that, yes, but
You support them unless the bus is slow or interfere with the movement of pedestrians, bicycles, or traffic.
we
Not within the rest of the traffic.
we mentioned that he agreed that there would be no actors at this location.
it's,
Well, that will be in the whereas, but again, we don't really care what they do that slows. If they uniquely slow, interfere, whether it's lines of people that interfere with the pedestrians, whether it's they're in a bike where the bikes go, which there isn't a lane there, but there are other places on the route. If they don't interfere with the mobility of other people because it's something they choose to do, is what it is. I mean, it's.
I agree with that.
yeah,
I don't think it hurts to have the actor thing as a stressing point.
it's
So it
in
makes
the
sense.
whereas,
Okay,
but I do,
thank you.
I think, couldn't you put it in that he has said that there are no actors on the downtown loop?
I'll put that as whereas, but it shouldn't be in the therefore be it resolved, but that's like saying you're a liar.
Do you agree?
No, you,
Like it says,
unless they choose to add it. If they choose
Yeah.
to add that, then they should come back.
I think that we should be, yeah, I think this is a little vague as written. I think we should just make it concrete and say unless they have.
And he seems to be okay with that.
Yeah, or something. Right? I mean,
Well,
it's saying the same thing. It's just,
actors don't likely, but
it's your.
But he seems to be okay with that.
the bottom line is, if everything moves quickly and they're as fast as all the rest of the traffic around them, we really care what they do and we need to micromanage their business.
I understand. You're
Or
saying-
do we get to the bottom line and say, look, if they're as fast as everybody else, why are you putting in all these stipulations that aren't necessary?
But if he's okay with it, I don't see the controversy. If he was not okay with it, then I could see your point, but if he's okay with it, I don't see why there's any.
Whereas, to say that he's made this commitment, that at this time they'll do that.
Yeah, I mean,
But the question is, treat everybody the same. If he's not going to, the coming into a tour route. If it does not interfere with the rest of traffic movement, the rest of the way pedestrians move, then what are they doing wrong?
That's fair enough.
That's fair.
But again, it will be mentioned as a whereas.
Okay.
So it's in there. But I think these two reasons it is. So let me take a vote and. Renee, you're probably better.
Pat, yeah, you want?
I have my hand up. Can you also add, can you go back to that slide? So you said movement of pedestrians. Can you also add in there with the access and egress of the residents of those buildings? So as long as it doesn't interfere with the access
There's
and
really
egress
no
of the.
way Well, they're pedestrians at that point. Until they enter their building, they're pedestrians.
Yeah, it's covered under pedestrian access of the sidewalks and access to their,
The businesses.
it's covered.
All right.
Okay, so can I get a motion to vote? Well, second, yeah. Let's take an affirmative vote. You're assumed yes unless you say otherwise. So who would like to vote no? How many people would like to call to recuse themselves? Like to abstain?
Thompson, abstain.
Then everybody else is a yes and the motion passes. And thank you, Ms. Butler. She just came. She can't vote. Well, yes, she can. She can vote.
Tricia, do you want to abstain on this vote? We were voting on the tour bus. I know you didn't hear.
I've been here, I just haven't been, I turned the camera on to vote, so I've heard everything and I'm voting yes.
Oh, thank you, sorry,
Sure.
my bad.
Thank you, and Mr. Walker.
Thank you all.
It's
Have a
there.
good afternoon. I appreciate all the input and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm up to my
Welcome.
next venture, next community board. Thank you all.
Enjoy vacation.
Bye-bye.
That's cool.
Yes, and he has a lot to do because he's getting a lot of things started. His life now is.
Community board. No more vacation rentals. Okay.
Okay, next issue, well, and there are a lot of dotting yards across the T's with all the various trees.
Sure.
I can see the slides. I need the slides all the time. I want them. And that's passed, okay. Next item, we're going to look at, this is the introduction of law 778. It was introduced in 2022, but again, it continued on, but it didn't get closed up last year, but nevertheless, that's how it's designated by City Hall, but by our City Council. This is establishing a photo noise violation monitoring device program is the name of the legislation. I'm going to the next one. This is kind of interesting. This was, I sent you all a link so you could see this whole draft resolution in advance. This, and you could also see CB6's Transportation Committee that they passed. This is more extensive than theirs was, but I do want to give them credit that they did this and passed it in June. Support the legislation. This about the volume and the consequences of sound, traffic sounds. A study following more than 4 million people for over a decade found that starting at just 35 decibels, that's pretty frightening, there was a risk of dying from cardiovascular disease increased by 2.9% every 10 decibels of exposure. So while it's not a definite it's going to happen, it's pretty frightening that it's there as a background. And these again are trigger heart attacks and strokes and various cardiovascular diseases. According to the World Health Organization, the average road traffic noise above 53 decibels or average aircraft noise exposure above 45 decibels is associated with adverse health effects long-term. Prior exposure to noise, this surprised me. For example, traffic, I used to live underneath an airport runway system for Douglas Kennedy Airport. And you do get kind of used to it, but it doesn't actually make you ignore it. It doesn't hit your consciousness, but rather it primes your body to overreact and amplifies the negative effects, which are mostly the health effects that you're not consciously aware of either. So there's risk to it. Modified mufflers and horns that routinely produce noise in excess of 110 decibels is not that unheard of in Manhattan or even in our district. It's just fairly localized. Next, I want to control. Exactly. Speak there and not have control. Cars and motorcycles with modified mufflers are routinely heard on West Street. I hear them where I live. over and heavily related to speeding. But nevertheless, these modified mufflers and things do exist in our district, and you do hear them. Our honking complaints are widespread. We've had multiple meetings, generally a quality of life, so Pat is more familiar with this. They are especially disruptive and common in our district on Canal Street. The streets around the Holland Tunnel are pretty horrific, and the road. And the financials around John Street, where there's endless, and we've had multiple community board members who've complained about that, and the honking. Manhattan Community Board 1 members have to skip, before I ask you to skip. Persistent widespread violation of the noise ordinance by modified mufflers and honking. Next. New York City noise code. This surprised me. I had to go look it up. The Department of Environmental Protection, or the DEP, it says it defines it as the maintenance of excessive and unreasonable and prohibited noises within the city affects and is a menace to the public health, comfort, convenience, safety, welfare, and the prosperity of the people of the city. They define it, but how do they enforce it? U.S. Environmental Protection and WHO talk about maintaining environmental noises below 70 decibels. When you talk about it on a 24-hour basis, 75 decibels with an 8-hour basis. When you talk about traffic noise, you have to go by 24 hours. You can't predict when it's going to be, and the roads don't close. Anyway, to prevent noise-induced hearing loss over time. The EPA also specifies limits for speech interference and annoyance at 55 decibels, so lower. You don't constantly want to annoy the neighbors. So it's not just a matter of losing your hearing. And those are the people who come to quality of life. And 45 decibels when you're talking about outdoor activity, indoor activities. So these things are frequently broken because I know I monitor on my unit and it's broken by certain people who do. Next, we want to try to avoid that where the traffic is the worst in our district. As far as the plan for monitoring that noise, that's a critical first step. City of New York Department of Environmental Protection currently employs only one photo violation monitoring device for the whole city.
Where do they keep it? Do you know, Betty?
No, I don't. It's almost easy to do. To identify and issue tickets. That's what these will do. They identify and they will issue tickets just as bus cameras do. To people who, whoever it is identifying, is breaking the noise ordinance, which is 85 decibels within 50 feet. That is extremely loud and exceeds any of these things except for change mufflers, which are 110. So you're going to see that asked for too, is the DEP to please relook at that, because this is a level that leads to hearing loss. And there's no excuse that that's what's used all the time. The DEP plans to employ, according with this, the DEP plans to employ 7 such devices by the end of this year and plans to have as many as 100 of them by the end of 2028. We're still talking about a almost 5-year time frame for this full rollout. Hence, I think the legislation. Next. Further, whereas for background, New York City Council bill, I'll give you some details about that. They would change the administrative code, which you always have to do, of the City of New York, and establish photo noise violation monitoring device program for motor vehicles. Which means right now it's not legal within the content of our administrative code to do this, to ticket people based on noise pollution. This law would also legalize and establish guidelines for the type and calibration of the devices in use, which is important because the devices aren't being calibrated, they're not particularly trustworthy, and that should be done. It sets up the rights and responsibilities of the motorists and the enforcement with respect. So this gets this really much more legal structure to it. Defensive, contesting it. I mean, the whole system is going to be set up by this legislation, which is why it's rather important. Because we know the department is going to be installing these devices let's have some legislation to regulate them and control. Seems to make sense to me. Anyway, we'll see what you have to say. Go next. I think that's the end of those. Yes. So let's hear from people on the committee and then we'll go to people online. And Mimi, this is you first.
Yeah, it's not unusual for a city to be able to prevent people from blowing horns and such. There's a lot of problems. I grew up by an Air Force base, so there's a lot of jets. And it was really upsetting. We're surrounded by a lot of loud things that aren't just vehicles in the city. And I'm sure that we can't put something in our resolution about this, but it would be nice if these monitors could be used for construction in addition to vehicles.
Yeah, let me tell you the history of this. I originally approached Alice about presenting this to her committee, environmental protection. Their agenda was full at this time. She challenged me to write it because it's specific to traffic, to bring it here. She has told me her intent to build on this and take it into other things such as you're referring to.
Yeah.
Got much more input from the whereases about, there are some real reasons why we should be protecting people from noise volumes. So it is the intent of that committee to move forward, which is one reason why I wouldn't do it. The other was my agreement with them was I would stick to just traffic
Yeah, that makes sense.
because of this committee.
I think that just to push that a little bit further, like I know that we don't have any purview with the subway system, but it's crazy loud down there. And it's good to see that city council is thinking about our hearing. And it would be really great for them to continue that on into other spaces.
And it may be something that where environmental protection goes, but then we could always look at that as a resolution in its own right, as subways, and ask city council members to work on that.
Yeah, helicopters.
Helicopters, well, that'll be my updates, because that situation is kind of changing a bit
And some of the ferries. Thank you.
because of the new technology coming out that's electric. I don't know if it's a good thing, but it's. Anybody online? You could-
No, I had a question. I have three, so I just rattle them off, you know them. But one, is there any way of knowing where they plan to put these devices or impacting where they put them? Because one, we don't know where the one is, so who's to say that like we actually get them? Two, do we know if honking actually like meets this like level of interruption? Like for most cars it does. And then three, will there be any signage? So I'm guessing maybe in the same way that I'm thinking of like traffic cameras. Is there something to say this is under this kind of like surveillance to say that like if you honk right here, you can get it to him?
Jeff knows the answer to that.
So the first one,
Okay.
they're gonna look at, complaint data from 311, and they actually,
To select sites.
to select sites, and it also actually,
Members.
and council members, and requires them to, assess the request and respond in 30 days. On
And
the
that's partly why I included relocations very specifically in our district.
Right. And the last question, yes, there is a provision that says the department shall install signs giving notice to approaching motor vehicle operators where a photo noise violation of devices in use. So yes, there will be signs.
I don't know who this question is to, because I'm going to guess that maybe I don't have an answer to this. But what if there are, because I think we've all experienced this, 5 people honking at the same time? How do they handle that? Which also probably increases it. The street I live on, like many down here, is all high rises. So then there's all the echoes and it gets louder as it goes up. How do you handle that? Those are kind of just some questions I would want answered.
Even if some of the echoing doesn't really matter, the fact that you choose to make the noise or creating the noise that's harming people is what they're going after. How are they apportionate to multiple vehicles? That I don't know, because that's going to be a real issue in the locations that we have, because it's kind of everybody honking. Will they sequentially get all of them? I don't know if they scan. I don't know the technology well enough.
Yeah, and I'll also say that the legislation talks about like that it requires the department to sort of trial different technologies and it mentions things like artificial intelligence, so I think that they're looking to pay. They don't know yet necessarily.
Yeah, but it's like, how do you train that?
I know,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's a great question.
I think everybody's just saying AI right now, just to say it.
Well, I mean, you should do it.
Ask ChatGPT.
You should read the thing. It's really great.
I read it,
Trying to grapple with it.
Why are you asking the question if you read it?
because I don't feel like it answered all of those things. I was talking about AI. I know that they don't have an answer to that because they don't fully exist.
Right, but it's the only chance we have to start handling it. And it is a noise issue and Mitch, you do that.
Oh, yeah, but go ahead, Mitch.
Okay, actually, before my question, I forget your name?
Brendan.
Brendan, that really that was a great question. And, there's how many times, I mean, like I said, for, a few times that I borrow cars to drive, where somebody's looking at their phone while they're crossing against the light, and you do that little polite honk. And then there's 3 other people behind you that, like a truck driver that's doing the real loud honk. And I could see that you're getting like a false ticket, So my was, I wasn't sure if one honk would go over the decibel level. I think, like you answered it for Mimi. So most of the time, and I support this in principle, most of the time, the honking is unnecessary and it's noise pollution. There are those times where, for a safety reason, where somebody honks, because somebody's on their phone or texting and they're veering to a lane, or just, like a rare occasion where you have to honk. And is there a mechanism like where you can fight a ticket or something like that? Because if it's just black and white, I have a problem with it. Although in principle, I think it's a great idea. But he just opened my eyes to something else along with what I was saying.
Any of these things, any automated system that exists today, what they're trying to mimic, certainly goes to oath and has a system where you can go and test it.
Okay.
I mean, that is part of the.
Okay, so that answered that question. The other thing,
What I can also say to you for your own personal use would be, this is 85 decibels, which is very loud,
right, no,
within 50 feet.
I agree with
All
both these
things
principles.
go out 50 feet and, well, to let somebody honk their horn and get a sense of what it is on your vehicle
Okay,
would be my advice to you as well, so you feel more assured.
And look, I'll also say that when they say these monitoring devices, they're defined as one or more noise measuring apparatuses, which automatically produce 2 or more photographs, 2 or more micro photographs of videotape recorded images of each motor vehicle at the time it is used or operated in violation, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to be a video, there's going to be several photos. So if you can't, with all that evidence, prove that it's a certain vehicle, and you go to oath and contest it, I imagine you're not going to end up with a ticket.
Right,
You know,
I mean, I don't have a car, but I'm just,
Yeah.
I try to think of like,
you,
general.
Dennis,
but tell people to test out their own, it is 85 decibels at 50 feet. Tapping, you have to trigger that kind of.
Okay,
uh,
thank you.
So you can just, but test it yourself so you feel ready. Amon?
Oh, yeah. I feel uncomfortable with this. I don't know why we're going to wanting to be surveilled. And then who knows where the next step is, where we're going to be surveilled for any other minor infraction. The problem is we need to have the police enforce the rules. When they're in a neighborhood, they should stop vehicles that are exceeding the noise limits. I feel uncomfortable having another tool of surveillance on us all the time. We want Big Brother on us all of the time. And right now, it's for motor vehicles. I mean, what's next? I mean, we're going to do facial recognition for every minor infraction. We're opening the door to more surveillance and government giving us little tickets for every minor infraction. There are already existing rules. They're just not being enforced by the police. So
These aren't.
and is this really just a revenue generator? Is that really what this is also? So, and also going through oath, I'm sure there's a procedure, but once you get the ticket, you have to prove that you're innocent. So it changes the dynamic.
Janet?
I'd love to say that as a culture, we follow the rules and we have plenty of, we don't need enforcement, and that's why we don't have it. But it's just not the way it works. And it's kind of, I put it back to, it's, if we don't look at opportunities to improve the environment. I agree. I'm not a fan of facial recognition on any stroke of the imagination. But this isn't that. And this is about really loud noise that makes living on the untenable side. So I'm more down with saying yes to this and rabidly anti. Grew up on the flight path to get to the airport. And I definitely, I mean, noise is a thing. And if we could have, think about how much lovelier it would be to be able to get on, be down in the subways or be on the streets and not having just the din.
I agree. I don't enjoy noise, especially loud noise, but this is another way of surveillance by the government. It really is. Have the police issue tickets when they have a car with the modified mufflers or someone that's honking excessively, but to have a camera system on all the time, what does this lead to? I mean, is this kind of society we want to live in, always being monitored?
I just want to say, first of all, there are cameras everywhere. BNYP, you guys have, God knows what it's important. But it's a legitimate concern. A lot of like civil libertarian groups have brought up this concern specifically with this legislation, and I won't read it again for you, but there is a provision of the law that specifically says that they can't use this evidence, any of the photographs, any of the evidence they obtain for anything else.
For now.
But they can't, well, I mean, it's the law. They're restricted from using any criminal or civil proceeding against you, no matter what, unless it's connected to this specifically, adjudicating this ticket specifically. So that it's a legitimate concern, but that it's good that it's in there. I mean, that should allay your concerns a little bit, specifically with this. I mean, whether there's some law down the line and, that's different and we can talk about it then, but with this law specifically they've addressed that.
So I see the problem is the police are not doing their job. They're not enforcing things. So now we're going to depend on cameras and the system, whatever the system is, AI and 50 feet. And then how do you prove that it wasn't you? I mean, at least with a picture, you can argue, but this was me. I did go past the red light but how do you prove it with sound? That's going to even be more nebulous. Why are we opening Pandora 24/7? So it's just scary. It's a little worrying. That's all.
I don't think you realize how much they can localize sound. Because there was a lot of work done by NYU. In fact, it was during COVID time. And they could localize and identify. They did a lot of artificial intelligence to specifically do that. Yeah, definitely.
Just one thing to your point. I think part of it is like the ability to scale like enforcement. So like police are not always around. When they're not around, then this is another way to kind of not have it happen. But pivoting from that, one last question is around like where we actually put these devices. Is there a way to say, use the existing infrastructure? It's my point being like, I know another neighborhood is like fighting 5G poles that are going out. Like we don't want these random things going up. Can we make some kind of impact on that?
Didn't you say that we were gonna, there's a form where we ask for and suggest locations?
Yeah, and there's no law. But
So,
they also think themselves. It's just that if we make a request, they have to respond to it, and consider it. But it's not like,
so there's no notification system then of when if they have chosen a location that they think they want to install, is there any opining by
Within that law.
anyone? It also says local. So they might be.
It may be early yet, where this is the law, and then once it's handed to DEP, they have to figure out some of their agency regulations around how they're gonna implement that.
Back to the rules, which is how city works.
Yeah.
Betty, you had said that you had, one that involved like 3 locations that you were suggesting. I mean, you feel comfortable telling us which locations that you were willing to suggest?
Oh, well, it says in there, the problems that we've had the most complaints about here have been on Canal Street, and again, it would have to be narrowed down.
Canal, Allentown, I'm assuming?
Well, then it was around the Holland Tunnel, especially around the Rotary. It was pretty awful.
Okay,
The people who live around there, I don't know how they don't.
and then the other two?
And the other was around John Street, because again, the backup occurs there, and then there's constant honking. I know Mariana has brought that up, but I know we had the school that brought that up, and all the problems with buses can't get through, and everybody's honking in the morning, and it's.
And the third one?
There's Canal, Holland Tunnel, and John Street.
Oh, I thought Canal and the Holland Tunnel was the same,
No, the Rotary's a couple blocks away.
so, I mean, with the Canal Street, though,
It was vague. She wasn't sure.
That's now, we would have to localize
okay,
fair enough.
okay,
I think if this passes, we could actually really consider it for a resolution.
okay, okay.
Yeah, then if we get down to tax about where we would just, it was just council person, because he's asked, and then therefore be resolved, to get somewhat of a sense of where the issues tend to be in general, and not specific to West. If the law isn't passed, so there's no point.
And has anyone, do we know if, I don't think he's a sponsor, but have we heard anything about from our council member about whether or not he's supposed to at all? We don't.
It's not a co-sponsor, I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
And we have no reply.
And we have no point. I was gonna say, in general, I thought that was kind of the direction he was going, with looking for guidance from the board. So that's why I wanted to move on it, so that there's something that might make him look into it more. Then if you looked at it, if some kind of modification goes through that's positive or negative, can be responded to at that point. But
I'm wondering what
who's
my,
on mine?
I'm sorry.
Who's on the kingdom?
Marianne.
Yeah.
That's Marianne Bergman.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's like, yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to just focus for a minute on the modified mufflers that are so loud. I live near the bottom of West Street, and when COVID began, for some reason that triggered a tremendous amount of, I guess because the roads were less crowded at night, screaming traffic, individual vehicles just going by, making a tremendous racket. When we called the precinct, they said pretty much, you have to call us when it's happening. But of course, when it happens, the person is leaving unless they're circling around doing this. But they wouldn't come out at midnight and try to catch someone doing it either. So I feel pretty strongly that as far as the modified mufflers, they need to be caught and they need to be penalized, because they're really just making noise and torturing people. The honking is a perennial problem, and I know there are certain areas where it gets way more intense, but I'm just going to focus right now on those modified mufflers. I don't know if it's a problem going up the east side as well as here on the west side, but there probably are streets where people know if it's a problem, and that, I believe, should be monitored, because it's not a minor issue. It's a health problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, one, if people will let me know if there's specific spots they're worried about, but file a 311 report, because those are going to be what triggers some of the placements if this law passes.
As for mufflers, there's annual inspections for vehicles.
Oh, these are illegal muffler adjustments.
Okay.
These are known to be illegal. And in fact, there are shops that do it and are known to do it. And people said, why don't they shut those shops down? And they don't.
So people are coming in from out of town with these mufflers.
No, it's done in the city.
No, but if people come in from, they would get
A lot of
ticketed
us
and
thought
sit.
the police were doing it when COVID began, that in their own cars, because they were so unconcerned and disinterested. And it was so repetitive. It's not as bad, but it does still exist.
It does. And there's someone who goes on the next block from me for some reason.
Where, you know,
It is.
I just hope that, like I said, I really understand the TUI where it's coming from, and while though most of it I support 100% in principle, I just hope that it's based on solely, not, you know, not a fine money grab, you know, like, because, and they don't just put it in the areas in Midtown or Lower Manhattan where they know that they're gonna have the tickets paid, as opposed to you know, sometimes they don't kind of put it in some of the outer boroughs or places in other parts of the city where they might have a more difficult collecting, where there also is a problem. And it's just not another, you know, like,
You know, we don't know that until the law is, yeah, we
Right.
didn't know that until law.
but maybe if some of the you know, maybe if somebody else has any suggestions where, like I said, where we're talking about the mufflers, 100%, you know, like surveil the illegal mufflers, you know? But if there's some other, maybe whereas some modifications, because it's preferable if somebody else has some ideas to kind of allay some of those other,
It's a noise level, so those are just examples of things that are obviously going to break it. But in fact, it is a noise level, so it's not targeting a particular thing that people do.
And if the community boards are going to be able to request noisy locations, I mean, we have tons of noise complaint data online that the city captures, so they know hot spots.
and I hope that it could be used, we're talking about, I hope this technology it could be used for, say, maybe like some allowed disco or a restaurant that is impacting the people that live in the building.
That's Alice's committee, and that's why those things.
What's the word, not homeopathic,
Holistic,
holistic.
but you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
And if this is where we start, and it works, and it rolls, and it's not, then it can look at other things, but
Okay.
Although not in this committee, because I don't grab from other committees.
You put over the free theater.
Pat's had her hand up, so Pat.
Okay.
I want to talking about modified mufflers. How about the cars where they turn the entire back seat into a sound system and then they roll down the street and you've got to listen to this, you know, awful music playing at ridiculous volume.
yeah, that would get caught in this, that's for sure.
Mary Ann?
Yeah, that
Thanks. And if I could just add, a disco is stationary. What we're focused on here is traffic that's moving. So if you don't get a photo of them, you don't know who's done it. And they go with impunity. So I think we need to catch them in the act. Thank you.
Yeah, so then, is there anyone else with a hand up? If I can't see.
Can I make a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll second. Well, fighting, I want to go through the therefore be it resolved so that people know. But it's, yeah, that's so people can see it. For those who are on phones, if there are any. No one on a phone? Good, then everyone can see them. And since we're voting in the room, it doesn't matter anyway. I know you can see it. This is going to be also an affirmation vote. Any nays?
Yep. Surprise.
Which I also personally hate it.
Can I split my game at 35% yes?
I agree with you, but I'm not voting. Sorry about it.
Okay, so we just have
I
one.
agree with you.
Are there any recusals? Shouldn't be any of those. Are there any abstentions?
I was interesting.
Thanks. Would you look online to make sure cameras are on?
Yes, I'm
Yeah, Tricia has hers on. And then Tricia, you're a yes? Okay, okay. Thank you. Then it passes.
Tammy, did you adjust Robert's rules where we can split the vote like 80% yes and 20% no? No? I'm just, since you've been.
Funner in person, isn't it?
It's a lot more fun in person.
Okay, I think we just have one more resolution. And not that I'm a complete copycat from CV6, but they happen to hit the things that I wanted to work on, which was very nice. This was penalties for the enforcement of vehicles parked or operated with missing, fraudulent, obstructed, or defaced license plate. Favorite topics. Yeah, next. feel so bothered by this now. In fact, everything from this is a good example. Cyclist hit by an Amazon truck that had no plates on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that truck?
We don't know that it was Amazon and just had that branding on it.
Oh, it could have been like a fake Amazon shop.
No place there, huh?
You know, rent.
I wasn't a newspaper reporter either. But anyway, for the missing plates, see the wrong.
They were peeping at me earlier, I know it.
Fraudulent plates, and these are a lot of these are the paper plates, the temporaries from other states, and it's what the mayor is complaining about at this press conference. Next. Obstructed plates, which can get very creative with all different things placed in front of the numbers, so you can't read it.
Honestly, got points for it.
And next, defaced plates, these are very common too. We just scrape off some of it or repaint over. It's more what I see around where I live there. Next. What is the problem? Why do I care? It makes it difficult to identify and locate drivers who commit crimes, such as fleeing the scene of a crash, or from a crime itself that has happened, as you saw with that Amazon truck. Evading automated enforcement, red lights and speeding, parking and bus lane violations can't be picked up because there is no license plate. Can't be used for toll evasion, bridge evasion, in tunnels. When we get into congestion pricing, it's a constant problem. They provide vital revenues, and these people are getting by free. How big is the problem? Next. Yeah, according to Phil Banks, Deputy Mayor of Public Safety here in New York City, there's no legitimate above board reason to remove a plate, obscure a license plate, none that I'm aware. So this is very clearly, nobody's doing it because they can't figure out why, or they have some reason. That we can kind of rule that out. Motor vehicle, New York traffic law, section 402, make it illegal to operate a vehicle with a missing, fraudulent, obstructed, or defaced license plate. There's one law that they're breaking, and it has a fine. The administrative code of the city makes it illegal to park. So they're breaking a second law as well, the vehicle with a missing, fraudulent, or obstructed, or defaced plate. So they're breaking multiple laws, and I'm sure they're aware of it. Next. How common is it? This is almost worse. Missing, obstructed license plates. The Twitter account's kind of funny. If you look at defaced plates, had over 1,600 tweets. If you look at How's My Driving, they have over 182,000 pictures of people doing it. That's a lot of tweets for a lot of vehicles doing it. In August of 2022, the DOT was unable to read 7.3% of the triggered enforcement cameras. That's a pretty high percent. But if you look at the increases, a year earlier, in August of 2021, that figure was only 4.72, which is pretty awful. So it's almost nothing, close to doubling. And it was only 1.26% in August of 2019. So it's continuing, and it's been rising at a pretty rapid rate. So it's not a new problem, and it is an increasing problem. Next. And keep in mind, for people who don't pay the fees, other people's fees go up faster. So for those who aren't breaking the law, you should be outraged that you're picking up the price tag for them being a go. We're on a single bridge at a time. This was the Port Authority that was doing this work, and they stopped, can't read it, and they impounded 63 vehicles that had tolls worth 1.5 million in arrears. That's pretty horrifying. That's just one day on one bridge. Anyway, next. The MTA, so they're dealing with it too, not just DOT. The newly proposed legislation, Intro 1116, this was introduced this year, so it's 2023, would require that the Department of Sanitation remove vehicles that are an encumbrance on the street and would be there and they shouldn't be within 72 hours after receiving notice. So again, they must be notified. Nobody complains, the clock doesn't start. It also would require the police department to tow vehicles parked on the street that do not have license plates, registration stickers on them. And doing various illegal things, but covering the ones on most is.
Can I ask you a question about the one part of that sentence? I read it before coming here, and like I said, I agree with everything about the license plate. I just want to make sure, because I know a bunch of upstanding citizens and, good
Break the
people.
law, they're not upstanding. though.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, let me finish the sentence, please, that oh my God, I forgot my inspection expired 2 days ago. I wouldn't want that to be one, I wouldn't want a sanitation truck to be able to tow that car because they have an expired inspection sticker, because of a lapse of judgment, as opposed to no inspection sticker or no registration. Is that like where there's no registration or no inspection sticker, or it could be towed because of an expired registration or expired inspection sticker? If you can clarify that for me, because those things would make a big difference.
I think it would be even for an
Sorry?
expired. I think it would be even for an expired one.
Okay, so that,
And then it's a notification.
okay,
I
okay.
mean, eliminate notices and complaints.
The thing we have is already for the traffic enforcement people, if you're parked on the street and you have an expired registration, they give you a ticket.
Right.
There's all types of people, are like, that doesn't like that neighbor or something like that, and they check something. And I know I've had people in my family that, just lost track. Oh, I was supposed to have inspected, I think the year was up like last Thursday, we'll run out to get it inspected. Luckily, they didn't get a ticket for those 3-4 days. But to have that lumped in with the other thing, which is a security issue for the people that are fleeing a scene of a crime or not paying a toll, I really feel that the inspection and registration thing shouldn't be lumped in with that, because there are legitimate, honest mistakes with that.
I think that's legitimate.
Thank you.
And then,
You get a ticket, you want to find you made a mistake, but.
They probably ticket the registration more than they ticket the license.
Right, but not to be lumped in where it could be told as a whole other thing. Because one thing is for safety reasons and to ward off crime and not to have other people have to, the good citizens, bad things go up. But that one thing stuck out to me because I think years ago when I had a car, I was, one year I forgot the day, was up and, run to get it re-inspected and, innocent.
Well, keep in mind, this is asking them to tow, that doesn't mean they're going to.
They shouldn't be be able to tow. You get a ticket by the parking person, when I was a kid, they were called brown shirts, but the meter people or the traffic police, but that's already in place. That shouldn't be on this one. Just that small little thing. I really feel strongly against that one thing.
Well, we're not writing the legislation, we're just looking at it. But I think the focus of it is license plates. And they have used, there's no place where they're saying expired. They're saying if it does not have a valid license plate, registration, or inspection sticker, or improperly displayed or obscured license plate, registration sticker, inspection sticker, or VIN number. So, I think they need to go into they need to go into the details, obviously, with
If
this.
it's expired, it's not valid, right? So you don't have a valid one.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I guess they probably need to work on this legislation some more. I still think it's going in the right direction, because the problem that Mitch described is not really the problem, because the person who has an expired inspection sticker but has a valid license plate, a ticket can be written. The problem is the people who have the obscured license plate, the missing license plate, then you can't even write them the ticket for the expired inspection.
I agree. That's exactly, I agree.
Well, the
Right,
legislature.
it's kind of therefore be resolved as the background. I think if you look at what we're doing, some of what you're saying is kind of irrelevant to this particular resolution anyway, but not the law, but to this resolution.
so what I was gonna, thank you guys, sorry. What I was gonna suggest is, once we got here, is to support the legislation with a caveat. Because if you are pulled over for any kind of infraction, a moving violation or whatever it is, or if you're stopped somewhere and the policeman or parking agent notices that you have an expired inspection and they look, you are ticketed. Having had those tickets, it is considered driving without a valid inspection because it's expired. If you have a valid, I think there needs to be some nuance to this legislation. If you have a valid is your inspection.
Or registration.
Well, how, no.
No, the registration's on the front of the car also.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all right there.
Right.
Because I just had to re-register, one of my daughters.
My point is that if you have a valid license plate, but you have an expired one or the other within X number of days, let's say 30 days, you should be eligible to get a ticket and not get your car towed.
Which is how it is now, right? I mean,
Oh, no, you still get a ticket. Yeah, you get a ticket. They don't, the car, they
Well,
don't.
you know, if you get stopped, I remember years ago, we were driving my daughter's car, and then one of the front headlights went out. And they were doing some like check on Canal Street, and, you know, I got a ticket, but then I went to an all 24-hour place, and then you can get the ticket like absolved by fixing it within like a day or two, you know, because the intention is, and it's for safety, it's a good rule, but it gave you a chance to mitigate it. And, you know, something, so if we can, like, something like that, that would be great.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we should support the legislation that was asked them to remove the part about the registration and the.
Yeah.
Keep it mostly
out.
focused.
Keep it focused on
One
one
place,
Yeah.
So what's the current law now? If a car is parked and a cop sees that the face of the plate was intentionally
They write a ticket.
write a
I
ticket?
think we had it, right?
Yeah.
It's illegal.
You get a ticket.
That's a fine of $25 to $300.
But
Which, if you deface your plate to avoid paying tolls, I'm not really sure that you're gonna pay that ticket either. Because defacing a plate messes with the easy pass.
I think on a bridge, something that they confiscate cars for people that are trying to do that on bridges.
But when you look at the percentage of people who are doing it, and then those occasional stings might capture 17 cars. But I mean, I'm in very wealthy areas I pass through on the Upper West Side, and it's just astounding. It's very high-end
I
cars.
agree, as long as we keep the focus on the license plates, I support it 100%. I just noticed those two things when I read it the other day.
Yeah, also, if you deface your plate, like I saw a plate the other day and it was a Maryland plate and the person had scraped off the background. So you could still see the numbers, but you couldn't see the state. So then what happens when the camera ticket sees that? It's gonna probably assume New Jersey, you know, because it doesn't see, or it might assume Pennsylvania or Connecticut. You know, it's gonna take the closer states first. So then somebody else who has that same number in a different state, it's gonna get that person's ticket. And, yeah, you know, so. Yeah, you can figure out all different ways. So it's not a victimless crime. I mean, not only does the city lose revenue, but other people are getting other people's tickets.
Yeah, again, I see this as a money grab again. The police aren't doing their job on the road. They pass by cars all the time with the face license plate and they don't do anything. So now we're gonna find other ways to ticket them when they're parked. Oh, okay.
They've had like news articles and stuff about how many of these are actually like
Right.
law enforcement.
Vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And they don't enforce themselves.
And politically connected figures and
Self-sanitation.
Mary Ann, do you want to say something? You got your hand up for a while?
Yes, thank you. When I saw this item on the agenda, I immediately thought about the north end of Battery Park City, where there's a task force with federal and NYPD parking wherever they want in the neighborhood, literally on a corner, so that any kind of turning is extremely hazardous. And where I see defaced plates, literally a license plate bent, so one end is covering half of the numbers or digits, and he's got police parking. So when I first, 2 slides ago, when I saw the police were going to enforce it, I immediately said, what is this even about? Because it's not about the particular thing I'm so aware of as a problem. The police do not enforce it already. I think the focus of this needs to be on things that are defaced and fraudulent, rather than something that's expired or forgotten. And I think we need another, I was sort of hoping that any citizen could report this and get the car towed when it's on the corner and you can't get past it. That would solve a problem. That would make something happen. But the hazardous stuff I see happening right in our neighborhood, it's shocking, and it's done by law enforcement. Thank you.
So this proposal, how will sanitation enforce these rules? They're gonna be pressured by law enforcement unofficially not to tow it. So how will this?
There are some places in Queens and Brooklyn where there's like some truck like that's been abandoned and maybe like 8 months or 9 months. And it's, there's rats, there's sometimes a homeless person will use it and there'll be food there and stuff like that. And people let's forget about our, the well-to-do neighborhoods that we all live in over here mostly, that there'll be people that complain that don't have the political connection to power that people in Tribeca or the financial district have, and they get nothing until they call up, News 4 or something like News 1. And so this might.
No. It's a good thing, they won't be.
I thought it says that if it's like within if it's been abandoned for 72 hours.
72 hours from the time they get notice of it, that they have.
And it's not abandoned, like, if you read the thing, it says that, they can't just tow like what is clearly, what might be a crime scene or
That's what
whatever.
some
It has to have to do
But
with
somebody
the
would like,
license
somebody
plate.
in the neighborhood would like, that's in that neighborhood, that's been complaining for a year, then might have a mechanism to get that thing towed. I'm talking about those cases, or am I?
You know what, well, if they deface the plates, they might be able to get it towed, but that's not right.
But you have to also look at a greater good. Yeah. We have to try and think, not of necessarily the one person who's egging on for their neighbors, because that could be, what you're looking for are the increase of the missing cars with missing plates or defaced plates that end up charging the rest of the drivers more.
I'm for this with the focus being on the license plates. I was just answering Eric's thing about because he was worrying about something else, and I'm saying so that there are occasions where something has been with that. It's not just the money group, where it has been like a nuisance in some neighborhoods for a long period of time, in some sections of the Bronx, of Brooklyn.
So report it as a fake plate, maybe someone will come out and check.
Well, but that's like abusing it, right? Like,
I-
it's supposed to be.
I don't-
I'm saying that this might help, that's what I'm
If you
saying.
look at what they have written, it's a very nice resolution.
It says that they can't, no tow truck operator knowingly shall remove a vehicle suspected of having been stolen, abandoned, or an evidence vehicle. So it doesn't cover the abandoned part.
Okay.
Sadly. So you
This
can't.
is very specific, so as you can see, the first, therefore, be it resolved, is really asking our council person, please support legislation. It does not specifically name this legislation. And it specifically is about the defaced, the obscured, the whatever, the license.
So what are you putting into, sorry.
Yeah, good saying. What I'm hearing is the next one, it doesn't address the issue you're talking about, but it urges the police department, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, because they can handle the
Bridges.
bridges things. Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul to increase enforcement and hold vehicle owners accountable, again, only for missing, fraudulent, obstructed, and defaced license plates. And what I'm hearing from people is to add another, be it there, that City One supports local law 160, I'll fill out the number, if it's 1116, whatever, and urges that it focus only on license plates, that vehicles with valid license plates,
Without,
vehicles that do have valid license plates, then expired registrations and inspections are not be subject to being towed.
Okay,
So if your license, we're focusing on the license.
right.
yeah.
So license plates, okay, but there are these other problems, then don't tow them. That would be the adjustment we're really asking for on this digital piece of legislation.
Yeah, within 30 days. So if it's expired within 30 days.
People agree?
I mean, I think if you have what. But if I'm 2 years old, that's a problem.
Then you want to would you suggest maybe then, okay, 2 years is too long, but maybe something longer than 30 days?
How many days does it take?
Before towing, I think they should still get.
They're not going to tow on the, trust me, they're not going to tow. I wish-
I would just like to, could
31.
we remove, could we just say we support the legislation with the removal of the expired, the registration and the, other,
Inspection and registration.
Yeah, I don't, because if you have a license plate that looks legal
Right.
and it could be stolen, you don't know.
Okay.
Right? But the registration in the front is expired for 2, 3, 4 years or whatever.
Okay.
Then that car should,
okay,
Or the registration and the license
so at
plate.
least we got some,
Do you want to give them 60 days rather than 30 days? I mean, what makes people a little bit more comfortable? I don't think you need a year.
No.
That's obviously-
I'm okay with this, with your other second part, is 60 days. I mean, if it's 30 days, I'm sure is okay too, but however everybody else feels.
Also want to hear from other people, how many days would be acceptable to you? Expired less than X number with the X.
but there is state law, you get 30 days.
I know, but they want to give, they always want to give more.
No, I'm
not-
not for 30 days. I just.
Whatever the majority feels, I'm okay with.
Yeah, there's already existing laws. This is a money grab again. I just see it that way. There's already existing laws, but it's not being enforced.
I would if it has
Yeah.
registration.
We're not putting any number in, just the way you read it.
If the registration doesn't match, the license plate.
Can I make a point? Could I please make a point? To me, there's two aspects of this whole thing. There's ticketing and then there's towing. So there's probably already laws in existence for ticketing violators of all these various items. The question I think that is before us now is whether
I'll get to you later, but we did recall on us. People know we were having a discussion on. No, I understand, like.
you're muffled, I can't hear you.
30 days, okay? Their consensus is people don't have to go over 30 days, 60 days, it's perfect with that.
The registration thing. I think if it's an expired registration.
Is everyone who's speaking have a microphone near them? Because you're getting very muffled lately.
Sorry, we haven't.
Is this the owl?
Yeah, we haven't moved. Yeah, is it better if I look at it?
Yes.
I think that I do support Tammy in some time, so that it means like recently expired, because it is possible to just buy a plate that's meant for display and put it on your car, and it's like, it's not a valid plate, but it's not defaced, so.
Where it's stolen.
Right, so I mean, I think we're picking hairs, because I don't think anyone is actually going to be going and looking at inspection stickers and reporting those. So I think it's really not even going to come up. But, people are going to be reporting their plates.
And is this about people reporting, or is it more about the police observing and taking action?
Police, this is about this particular law. On this law, the question is, To ask them to just plain drop it from that whole part is probably a pretty big reach for the council person. It's also, these are people doing major things potentially wrong. We're not talking about somebody who innocently forgot and now they're going 2 days late. We're talking about they're over a month late, and there are lots of reasons why that could be not somebody forgot.
I'm also going to read for everybody in the room off of the New York DMV site. If you need an extension, because you are not in New York State right now, right? You're not in New York State when your inspection will expire. You can apply for an extension. First, determine if an expired out-of-state inspection is a violation of the law in the state you're in. Ask the authorities if a New York State inspection sticker prevents a ticket for a violation. Extension gives you 10 days from the date the vehicle returns to New York to get an inspection. 14 days for DMV to process and mail your sticker. So there are already things in here. I think
I
that
guess the 30 days is putting better now.
Or they don't have to bend over backwards for people with them, because they can oversee, but we're giving them a period of time.
Are you saying that it's covered and we shouldn't?
I think inspection stickers,
No, that's not exactly true, because we're talking about a specific piece of legislation.
if the inspection sticker on your vehicle is expired in the past 60 days, you can receive a fine. If the inspection sticker is expired more than 60 days, your fine goes up. If there's no inspection sticker, then there's another fine. So, I mean, they already have it in here.
So Betty, you want to put 60 days to match that?
I have their feedback from people, and I don't care.
It's already,
I'm saying more than 60.
I'd say 120 days
Sounds good.
before towing everything.
I think we're all agreed in the principle of everything.
I think
Just like that one little,
It's
Just
just like,
looking for a number
it's just really
that
bad.
people can live with.
I'll defer to
37.
bingo.
You should know the answer to
Bingo.
the universe.
How about
I mean,
the oldest person in the room and then we pick two.
I think it says there's a low fee if it's within 60 days and a higher fee if it's more than 60 days. So if we said more than 60 days, then that goes with the higher fee.
So,
I mean, we're just making a suggestion
right.
to our legislators. We could even use more vague language like recently expired. Leave it up to them to craft. So,
Right, and the ultimate question, the ultimate comment is we're asking them to just plain drop those from this legislation and focus on the plates.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna vote for 60 days unless the majority says 30 days, but I'll put it out there for 60 days. And see how this, you or the 5 or 6 people feel.
I have more than 60 days because
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
we're
fine.
60 days.
Okay,
Everyone has to-
however you word it is fine. I think what Deb was saying, the gist of it, the focus on the license plate, I think we all agree, it should just be on that.
Right, there would be an additional whereas, additional therefore be it resolved to these two. And that is that MCD one supports this particular legislation, 1116. It urges that it be focused only on license plates.
We say with the exception of,
Just
not,
let it only on license plates. And that if it has a valid license plate, an expired the registration or inspection has to be more than 60 days, but we're still saying not to tow them.
right, I just wouldn't say urging, I would just say that something like definitive, that we support this with the exception of, and then the rest of your language is great.
Well, the urge is for it focused only on, we're asking them to
Okay.
get a change in the law.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's really what we want, right?
okay.
Because that would, so it's not only we like it, but we urge you to get this change in the law, and that
Okay,
to make adjustments up on that.
Betty, are we gonna get rid of the first appropriate result that we have here? It seems like.
No, because we can support others, because they may say, you know what, let's drop this and create a whole different bill. You know, it's just in theory, we want this, we want to see, since we have one in hand, we're going to specify what we'd like changed about it.
Okay.
And are there any hands up that want to speak, and then we'll call a question, take a vote. Yes, please.
So should we put the Port Authority too, or is it? Because Holland Tunnel, they're responsible for that. Or is it?
Are we advisory to the Port Authority?
Yeah.
We advisory to do whatever we want.
Exactly.
No, I would agree, they should certainly continue with their staying. I think that's a good idea, so I agree with you. So that second one. Hey, if there's no one else, if someone wants to call a question, that'd be great for a vote.
I'll call the question.
So, wonderful. Any, no,
No.
Staying.
any,
No doubt. Make sure there's no doubt.
do we have any refusals?
Sorry, is it just the one now?
Just one.
But he wants to make it so big.
Yes. Oh, should say that.
No abstentions. Are there any recusals? I'm not seeing Trish's hand up, so that looks like a no as well, or a 0 as well. And that leaves me with 8, and it passes. Yes. You ready? So we can move on from all of our business that requires numbers. If those who are dying to leave, you don't hurt our ability to vote. But you'll get to hear, oh, I didn't want to bias anybody before I knew that. Make sure someone would yell at me.
Reading their table.
If we
Before news, just do a one budget year table.
Yes, no, that's on next. So this is just having to do with the last resolution. For those who I know which, I can't read it, the rest just read it.
The NYPD says it would be hard to tow more cars with illegal plates because the city's move in 2021 to shut down an apartment's tow pound on Manhattan's west side.
That's their response, the NYPD's response to the
I'm
legislation.
sorry, could you repeat that again?
The NYPD is saying that they can't tow more cars with illegal plates because they shut down the,
The place on the west side, they should, that home on the west side?
Yeah, Pier 76.
So where are they,
We
where,
don't really care about that, but
I'm just curious.
they're already saying they don't intend to do it. anyway.
They've got a new.
We go to the next one, because
They gotta
the
have-
Twitter world was talking about it. If you go to the next one, which is on the right, no.
nightmare trips over there years ago.
That- So they were applying this, so that appeared in the Gothamist, the bit about the NYPD. So just for false testimony from the NYPD, they can buy stackers to increase lot size, and there's nothing from having them boot aggressively. So there are other strategies they could use to slow down those cars and do something about it if they wanted to. And the next one also was somebody going after the NYPD. Yeah, if you go to any towing company, they'll do it for $300.
Yeah.
So,
That's a money grab.
Capitalism.
right?
one of those people who really want them towed, but they're just saying, they're calling out the NYPD is what they're all doing. We are the next one, I think it's the bottom line of where the anger is. And here's an obscure place at one police plaza. So they don't, do it when it's right in front of them, so of course they have no intention.
Nobody's policing themselves.
I mean, to your point, probably.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it probably is police, or police.
worry about it.
But I didn't want to do any of these before you took the vote. so. But this is certainly out there for those who follow Twitter, which is all.
Nothing would have changed Eric's vote.
Not for anybody, but I want to bias other people who may have voted yes.
I'd be psyched. I mean, quite honestly, if sanitation can do the tow, it would, I don't care who physically tows the car, whether it's NYPD, it's sanitation, whoever tows it, whoever gets it going, that'd be great.
If they can get other people in fear, they can be towed, and so they do something with their license plate, that would be wonderful. They don't even have to be
The
towed.
sanitation truck that's blocking the street for an hour. Yeah. I'm just.
Actually, sanitation tows vehicles quite frequently.
Because going from just over 1% to just over 7% just in 2 years.
So,
That's a lot.
Oh, it's a lot. Which means you might want to know what the tolls would be in a tolling system.
no, I don't.
Those things exist, because those are huge amounts. So, on to this, when I leave it to the office staff to.
So I'm gonna start this with an edge. We normally don't do budget discussions till September. But I realized that it's a lot of rush and not a lot of thought that goes into it, other than the chairs who are doing a wicked amount of heavy loading, but pulling all the old resolutions and topics and looking at past budgets. So, I'm just gonna pull up what we have is our air table. And that will show every budget request we made for DOT. It may not have come out of this committee, but since DOT is the primary agency that this committee works with, these are all of the requests that we have. We are looking now at what budget requests we will make for 2025. So 23 was done, 24 was done last year, and in 23, we're making budget requests for 25. I know that sounds crazy after all the dialogue we've had in the media about the budgets in the city and the budgets in the state. So why are we now talking? It's because this is where the first stop of budget input. So a lot of this needs to be, some of it's holdovers. So if you look, I think Pat and I can tell you since end of September 2001, we are looking to get the Albany and West Street area looked at. So traffic study, Albany and West Street, which should include a left turn. That's what we've been asking for, a left turn off of West Street to increase the availability for southbound traffic to access, because the only way to access the lower Greenwich area, because there are no left turns off the West Side Highway, is for people to loop into Battery Park City or go all the way down to the bottom to turn around and come back up. So that is the top one. DOT has jurisdiction, New York State DOT for the matter covered in the request. We have referred this request to them and asked that they take appropriate action.
Kelly, you can make a left off the Chamber Street from the West Side Highway coming downtown.
South
Yeah,
Greenwich, south of the World Trade Center, there are no left turns.
Oh, okay, south, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were,
Yeah.
okay,
There's a little Syria area.
sure.
So that is phenomenally landlocked in a way that was not prior to 9/11 because Liberty and Vesey were both east-west access.
Although it is state DOT. And the city DOT
Yes.
has some say. Again, even town season, addiction, because I don't want people asking for things that are very much city jurisdiction, that are Port Authority jurisdiction, that.
However, New York State DOT will not do it without city DOT. So we go again, as they say. So when you start to look down, accessibility and public rights of way, which is a capital expense that we ask for repair, new curbs and pedestrian ramps, continue funding projects to make intersections safe for all users using best available technology and techniques. And there's a little bit more. Their answer is that from 2023, sidewalks are the responsibility of the adjacent property. They're not applicable to us. So that's something that we would take a look at and say, you know what, we need to retweak and word this, because what we're looking for is curb cuts, potentially, or making sure that at every intersection there is a accessibility. And you're not just popping off. So this is the air tip. We're going to share the links for this and a PDF to all the responses that have come from the budget office for 2023. So you can see conversations. Let's find one that was actually approved. Oh, there we go. Love this. Open restaurants, increase staffing for oversight by DOT for sidewalk and roadbed regulations. And the agency's position was they've begun implementation of the program. Yeah, not so much.
What's the background one approved?
How were we put that? Since DOT, right? For the,
And then where you putting,
it depends, it might be Department of Health, could be DOT.
could be price, yeah, it depends where you putting.
I think we asked for it from DOT, like,
I think we should put it in DOT, in parks, like, I think what we need to really be, because what I've learned from being in this seat is if you have a conversation that crosses multiple agencies, it is in your best opportunity to put that request for each agency. So you can't get this, where they say, that's not me, that's this. You know, you're asking for a bathroom in a park, that's the Parks Department. You're asking for a bathroom in a right of way, that's what this department, that's what that. So we just need to be very, specific.
Yeah, well, we asked for a bathroom from DOT. So
Yeah, Brenda, since you're new, the fiscal year starts in the middle of the previous year. The fiscal year 2025 starts July 1st, 2020.
So, I guess, you know, and when you look capital, the dugout spaces, which I'm sure Rosa will pop open as soon as I say that. The dugout spaces located beneath Brooklyn Bridge ramps off South Street between Frankfurt and Robert, and it goes down. Other transportation infrastructure requests. East Side CB1 has little recreation space for growing youth population. Supports the agency's position. And they're reviewing the request. It's under consideration. Please be in contact with the office for further details. That's actually great. And we've made some progress, not exactly all of the progress that we want. So that's will stay on and be a continuing request.
this one's the one you're talking about.
Yep.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yep. So, you know, these are the kinds of things that we want to take a look at.
But you're gonna be off on August, so this is when you're really bored and missing your committee meeting, you can take a look at it and see what is there that you think is missing or.
I'm assuming you have the cobblestone, like, still between like the, from Vestry, Greenwich,
Yeah.
Greenwich and Vestry.
That's always been on it.
That's always
Okay.
there. But that's the whole part. Everybody who has been on the board for a while has some institutional knowledge. You need to take a look through and use, and take the time, please. For those who are newer on the board, but you know that there's something not right in your area that should be improved, whether that's a capital expense or
Operational.
operational.
It's 35,000 is a great number.
For my education, can you use the difference between the capital and operational expense?
35,000
Oh, it's just based on the amount?
above and below.
So which is the,
Operational is day in, day out expenses.
Yeah.
thank you.
Capital is
Exactly. So, like Vestry Street was really a mess. Vestry and West roadway maintenance, pothole repair, resurfacing, reconstruct or restore Vestry between West and Greenwich. And
It's good, but it's on Greenwich, it's more like when you make the left, when you're on Vestry, but it's Greenwich going down those couple of blocks, that's a danger for
but that needs,
pedestrians, bikes and cars.
correct, that needs to go on as just Greenwich. So
Right.
this one was Vestry, and they supported the position, and temporary improvements have been made until permanent improvements can be done. So it does happen. And you know, when you get off and if you take in like Lake Street was improved, Vestry was improved, there's been a bunch of them that have and a bunch of them that have not.
Well, and there are a couple of things on there that are going to be kind of dicey, because one is Canal Street, we know they're collecting data on, and if they are through the DOT has hired consultants already to get ready for a project. And they are getting measurements through the end of this year. So obviously they're going to do something with that
And what,
and make some announcement. We don't know when, in FIDI with pedestrianizing streets. I know they're doing something. I know they've even hired consultants who's working on it. But they won't say anything about what they're doing or when.
So if you really want to just kind of keep an open mind and think, if it's, you wish there were more bike lanes on somewhere, if we go find on that, that should be in here. If there was general consensus on things that we know we want to make sure it gets budgeted in there that we've asked for. So like, for example, me and you was talking about, we know we had already said yes. And at this point, I'm feeling like it's 5 to 8 years ago about the public restrooms at Center Street, one Center Street Plaza downstairs. There was no answer on that. So at that point now, I'm going to stick that puppy on everything. And we need to actually detail out some more of an explanation that says, this was approved, we came in, we just want it done. basically.
You want to, the ones on the mezzanine open to the public?
No, actually, the ground floor, that big open area past the subway, the exterior space that's closer towards the bridge, was supposed to have installed, and even Landmark approved a public restroom out there. Because that way it would be available 24/7, and people who are walking the bridge or whatever, there's a place for people to go to the bathroom.
Okay. People will. Oh, then they pee all over that.
Right, or like, some very, listen, I give the guy credit. I mean, he put porta potties on the Brooklyn Bridge, which is the guy, I mean, I don't want to say security, all the rest of that, but I mean, and put a donation bucket up.
Because
And made buckets of dollars every day. And you know what? It's a health crisis. We need bathrooms. We need places for people to go to the bathroom.
they should pay for one person, just like they have in Bryant Park. Some, and even in the 42nd Street Times Square, they have an attendant to prevent, the misuse of those things.
Do
And
you know how much Bryant Park costs a year?
I know, but I'm just saying that,
Oh, no, we actually do know. It's
It's a $250,000, yeah.
it's outrageous.
We should have dropped it in a bucket.
but, so, in some way, for safety reasons, especially late at night, I'm not a prime target, but many people, for safety reasons, I mean, I could have supported more, but there needs to be some type of.
There are lots, no, there doesn't need to be, but there are lots of
Does it need to
options.
be?
And the public bathroom working group, Mimi and I, and Tammy Constance, there are lots of options out there, and they have lots of things they can consider, and so they can help with something.
There's a lot of community boards clamoring for the same thing for public restrooms. There is a will, there is a way. We just need to get it in the budget to get all. I mean, it's just,
Is there a consensus, do they have a consensus that it doesn't have to be an attendant? Are they, I mean,
We don't need consensus, right? There's just lots of different options.
okay, sure.
It doesn't have to be an attendant. It's really good to have an attendant. That's been proven. to be-
Even some of those electric,
Not use them. Attendance on
even
purpose.
in the Bay Area, they had an attendant at the ones that, the ones that open and close for like 15, 20 minutes and,
Yes.
but there was still attendants there because you have
We met
people
with,
that abuse and are a danger to themselves and others.
we met with the company that runs this.
They keep an open mind, there are lots of strategies, even in Midtown, which is crazy.
Okay.
And they have some people who are wandering attendants, others are thinking of attendant and standing at that particular unit, and they may cover a broad area and it's
Okay.
possible to make sure that everything's operational.
every community board is different. The public restroom needs in all different areas of the city are different, but the one thing that is unique is everybody needs to go.
She's into that.
And it's-
Rosa, do you have something on side?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Rob?
say that hi, on this specific subject, I couldn't stay silent. We have a commitment of financial support from Senator Kavanaugh to allow us to put public restrooms at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge. And DOT has told us that the only one that they would consider being able to use there is the ones from JC DeCal. So I went on a little, exploratory mission to check out one that was installed at Madison Square Garden. And Madison Square Park. And I have to tell you, it was horrifying because it's a single stall. It has a 15-minute cleaning cycle. So a single stall is not going to help that many people, as you know, and we have literally over 7 million people crossing that bridge a year. And then not only that, but it's one toilet versus, let's say, the ones that they have on the trailers at Governor's Island. That's like 7 fixtures for the men, 7 fixtures for the women. And you can have, family friendly, ADA compliant, all of this other stuff. All of these, and they cost like literally less than $100,000. They're made in America and in stock. And we're really running into a lot of difficulty trying to get the DOT to even consider an option that would not be complying with the JC Decau option, which, by the way, when I went to see it, was broken. The lights were also malfunctioning, so you didn't know that it was broken. It stunk of urine because it was leaking all the way underneath, and the same footprint that it would take for one JC Decau would cover 14 fixtures with this other company that has been in use by Governor's Island for years with zero complaints. In fact, they speak very highly of it. And so it's sort of like, well, when can common sense step in? It's like we have this desperate need. We have a solution to the need. We have funding to address that. By the way, we've already scoped it out, and there is sewage and water supply and electricity right there. So it would be a relatively painless hookup. And yet we're not even allowed to consider it. And so I think that we as the public need to push for common sense, and actually start, pushing to make these possible instead of saying, oh, okay, we'll wait like for $1 million for a single toilet, which takes 15 minutes to clean and, doesn't even work reliably. It's crazy. Anyway, so sorry, I didn't need to drop all of that on you, but I could not stay silent after hearing this discussion.
Yes, I have 2 points for you. One is that if you want to come before the committee and look for a resolution, I think we will probably be willing to hear you out and ask for this exception for this location. And look forward to resolution, very specific resolution.
That's an incredible idea. I didn't even know that was possible. Okay, yes, I want to do that.
For the public working bathroom group, I have asked the DOT and got some promise they'll come before us, but they're really hesitating, pushing back now. But there is an attempt to try, but keep in mind, JC Decau was only 35 stalls for 5 boroughs. So obviously that can't be used for all the claims that they're gonna have. Great.
For the public working group, could I ask for you guys to, you include the subway stations as far as in your discussions or not really?
We talk about them.
I'm sorry?
We talk about them.
Okay, because obviously they, for safety reasons and for staffing reasons, they've almost all been gone to hell and they're not accessible.
They're
Except for
opening.
the workers.
They're opening them now.
They're opening. They just made the MTA made a large announcement that
Great.
they are phasing in post-COVID renewal and reopening of all their bathrooms.
Most of them weren't open before the COVID and they weren't, or they weren't usable. So that would be something that would be wonderful if you guys could include in the things because.
We've been pushing for it and they are opening the bathroom.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's going to be coming up soon with there are 2 more pieces of legislation that are going to be introduced to us next week. They'll be coming before City Council. There have already been 2 or 3 others that have come before City Council. So there's a big impetus for getting change.
Great.
In general. So that's it. Any other hands up, Rosa? Your hand's still up or when you say? Okay.
So look at the links. If you have any questions, you can ask Betty or Jess or myself. But we thank Holly.
Is that up for this too? We're talking about the budget.
Yeah. We're going to go through questions. Onej is going to help us in September. We are not bothering Onej in August.
Okay, so I say, look, yeah, if you have questions, don't go to a national.
Yeah. Onej is the office in August with Lauren for part-time. So we're not going to really try and bother Onej unless it's really urgent.
We just write down our questions.
Yes, write down the questions. Keep your questions. Email them to us. We'll have them all in a file and we can go over them in September.
We'll collate them and then yes,
Yeah.
we'll follow.
Exactly.
Anything else to say on the budget?
I'm good.
Great, then we can go on to the part that if you're interested, you can stay. If you're not interested, there aren't going to be any votes on this. But I need to cue to the next slide. Quick shot, I used control in my own. And here's an update. Odd things that have happened. I have to. The MTA plan is to triple the number of paratransit users. This is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to get your response to it. Because right now, there are only 1,200 people who have this You have an app where you can call for taxi and go where you want to go, and it's covered. Is for this group of accessible ride people, it is not for other people. But they are changing that program. It really only involves 1,200 people. What they want to do is triple it, it goes to 3,600 people, which is still only a drop in the bucket, but nevertheless, these are the changes. Next few.
But they want to raise the price, I read in the paper.
Well, yes, but if I can get to the next slide. So, the new pilot is going to have two categories. But it sounds like people can choose which category they want to be in. Because it is e-hail is the name of the program. This will allow the distance program, which is one of the two, will allow up to 25 trips per month, with the MTA covering $40 for the cost of each trip, for each trip. And then there's the e-hail high volume program, which is your other option. And in that, you can have up to 40 trips per month. But the MTA covers up to $25 of the cost. So again, depending on your usage, you don't travel very far, you might like the frequent one. If you travel longer distances, you might like fewer, but go to covers more. Keep in mind, they can use Access-a-Ride like everybody else for $2.70 a ride, like anybody else. They are the only ones allowed to use this taxi service, so don't feel too bad.
But I read that they were going to raise the price to $5 from the $2.75.
It's going to go on to the next one.
Betty, what's a high volume?
That's the definition of high volume in quotes. You'll see it at the bottom. Will provide up to 40 monthly trips, covering up to $25 of the cost of each of them.
Oh, it's just quantity, okay, it's the number.
It's really 20, so it's really 20 trips because it's like 20 round trips, correct?
No, it's 40 trips, and whether you go round trip or not, but it's 40 trips.
Oh, you have to come back to your house, so.
You don't have to come back, but the fact is, each trip is like anybody else.
Vacation or something.
Well, you could go here, then you want to go over there, and then you want to go over there.
I was thinking in terms of.
You're saying it's go and come back, and that's not necessarily.
With these e-hails, is it individual? That's what I thought it was. Is it individual? Or is it?
Yeah, you start and end, that's a trip.
But will there be other customers on the vehicle or? just-
No, it's you using a taxi.
Oh, okay, but good.
Getting reimbursed for.
So you get on your phone, you just do an e-hail, like anybody else who's calling a taxi or an Uber or something on their phone, it would do the same thing.
Do you know how they got to the number of like 3,600? Is it like a budget thing or?
Because they went up from 1,200, they decided to go to threefold, which would take it to 3,600. They want to do, and we'll go to the next one. Let's get an idea of use the system. They're trying to collect some data. The expanded number of users account for a sliver of 175,000. So even if they go up to 3,600, like I said, I'll never see the light of day of this program. Everybody can use the standard Access-a-Ride. They are not banned from using Access-a-Ride. They're merely given this extra privilege on top of it.
How do you apply, like, how does one of the 175,000?
They say they randomly, in fact, the people who got in the first 1,200 are people who live in certain independent living centers. It was very,
Friends of.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
but anyway. Officials acknowledge the first phase of the pilot program was financially unsustainable, no question. Usage by just 6% of that 1,200. People, and then it's down to just 6% of them accounted for $8 million in costs. Obviously, it's not sustainable. But
See, when they say randomly selected,
how
that
much? Give them,
you don't,
how many times? Well, it goes on. It was very unfair to people who are using the program for less. The 2,400 new participants were randomly selected.
Well, like, over what amount of time was it? 16
A year.
8 million. So if there's 1,200 customers, $40 a month per customer.
$40 per trip, though, right?
No, it's a new cap. Before there was no cap at all. Whatever you got on your Uber, or whatever you got, and you paid $270 and they picked up all
Well, that's how it should be. I mean,
No, it shouldn't. It's
Why?
unsustainable. Where did they can use Access-A-Ride like everybody else does?
no,
Where did they find the 40 though? Where does 40 come from?
They picked it, but I can tell you that $40 will let you go pretty far if you live within your borough. There's some people complaining about it. If you live in Queens and like to go to Manhattan every day, $40 isn't enough for you. You have to pay something. And the rate's gone to $5 versus $270. And the MTA went up. This makes the cost the same as getting on an ordinary bus. And they said, look, you're getting an extra service that nobody else gets.
but if you're, like, I'm not, when I say you, I don't mean you personally, but if you're the same person that has to use certain things,
You don't have to. They can use Access-A-Ride.
and how about the horror stories that we've heard about that from,
You don't have to tell me.
right, so, I mean, I would think you would, more than anybody, would be against them doubling the price of the,
No, I'm for them broadening it because I'm one of the people of the over 100,000 that don't have the privilege this very small group
you
gets.
should have, I'm for
It's
that.
unsustainable.
If it's going to be expanded to a bigger group of people, it has to be a
You
sustainable.
better look, and part of it is they're going to figure out what's reasonable capping and be able to justify it.
Oh.
Keep in mind, Boston did this a good 4 or 5 years ago.
What is the,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
that's the topic, I apologize.
Well, if you go back one to see what the two alternatives are, it's for the very, it's 1,200 people are in Udall. They're a little bit 3,600, they're tripling it, but you can be in one of two groups, your choice, you the rider, your pick. You can either have 25 trips per month, and they'll cover up to $40 a trip, or you have this special e-hail. There are no limits on you using Access-A-Ride. Or you can go to the high volume program, which will cover up to $25 of the cost. And then you cover anything above $25 of each trip.
I missed that part.
And once trip.
Is that like e-health for the cabs too?
Yes. And Ubers and Lyfts and that was very wide. Yeah, no, it's a very generous thing to them. I would love them to randomly pick me. It's
That's,
unbelievable.
Betty, that's nothing, the random part, I have a problem with because you look, instead of like, the people that can just, that need the 30 or 40 trips, applying for it, instead of sometimes it's like the random, checks at the airport where they'll check some 90-year-old grandmother because she was the number 7th person in line, which means nothing.
Why are we paying for this? Why, the MTA has barely any money to start with. So why is the MTA putting more money out?
Tammy, the only thing, like, just in general, not specifically for this, what I feel we're lacking in our culture, in our country, I mean, the way we treat children, us old people, and for lack of a better word, and disabled, is there should be like, the best care, the best in the world, which happens in some other countries, some Asian countries and a couple of other countries, and that treat their elderly and disabled and children better. So I have no problem with that.
Only for disabled?
Although there is Access-A-Ride. It is an alternative.
This is only for 1,200 of the current 125,000, except users who are program.
So partially be devil's advocate.
3,600.
I think this is a crap program, but I imagine what it is, because we have programs similar to this at work, is yes, you have access to the Access-A-Ride, and obviously we have, public transportation. To me, this is more for almost like emergency use, I would guess. So like,
It isn't.
It's designed for commuters. If
Right.
you're taking 40 trips a month, that's,
Well, some of them don't work.
yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of, they say socially they want to get out, but some of these people made up to 10 trips a day, every single day.
They're abusing the system, they're abusing the system.
That's
I did a put some tax on it, saying,
There's gonna be abuse, people cheat on their taxes, but that means we shouldn't get rid, I mean, there's gonna be fraud in
no,
everything.
the question is not a matter of fraud, it's a matter of how much do you subsidize some people? How much do you subsidize anybody? People are complaining about the ferry system and how much subsidy there is. People are complaining about car ownership and why there's so much subsidy for those people. Well, this is the same thing. Why don't we bring it down where people have to make choices? If they want to do that, fine. If they are in an emergency situation, emergencies are going to take it care of anyway. But if they routinely want to go somewhere, this is available to them. I say call.
That's a great deal. I mean,
That's a
that's,
great deal.
Isn't taking taking the tax,
3 monthly trips is commutes to work.
I would love, I don't have to say,
well, you have to be disabled
Well,
to.
well, and they
do it.
also say, you know what, going to work is unpredictable, I'll use that, but I use lots.
Betty, can I ask you
I'll use access-to-ride vehicle on the way
a
back.
question? Isn't accessoride cost more than didn't they have a program where you could take you could take a taxi, one of those, ADA taxis, and that actually is cheaper than.
I think that was subsidy.
Right, so the thing is, it was actually cheaper for one person to take a taxi than what the government was paying for them to take the accessoride. And,
I think that's why they're trying out this.
okay,
Because I think they'd eventually like to dismantle the bigger system, because they're not managing that
Switch
very
it all
well.
to
so,
this.
So they have to find a way to get this to be within
that can
balance.
alleviate some of what Tammy, as far as some of the expenditures, that could alleviate some of that other thing, because what's the boondoggle of the accessoride costs, you know,
Yeah, no, it's not well managed.
right.
And there's probably some way actually of getting rid of, just changing the accessoride system and say, let's work with Via, let's work with Uber, let's work with taxis or whoever. But they have to figure out how to do it. They don't know yet. So this is just to let you know, I have no reason to opine on it. If I was going to opine on it, I'd say, I'm interested in seeing the outcome to it. I'd say, look at me.
Yeah.
But I think it's I think it's very generous and very doable.
You'd be commissioner.
It's more generous than any other city has for their accessory. And they've been considered successful programs, comparable to like this, their emails. So there's no reason that the limit should be off just because you're disabled. It's like, give me a break. Then, next. So when you do hear complaints, now you have you have the numbers. Then you're the next one. This one, the DOT's Locker New York City pilot program is starting this summer. In fact, it starts next month. These so-called smart lockers will be at 15 sites around the city. They have not been finalized, so we don't know. Go Locker is a New York City company that will do the installation and operate the units under a one-year pilot program, just so you know, it'll be August to August, this one-year pilot. And I think the next one has a picture of it, so you can see it. It's on the sidewalk next to buildings. So you can see where it is. And this was set up in an attempt to get rid of some of the last mile, the delivery trucks, and saying, especially for those facilities, which we have in Tribeca and some others where they'll walk-ups, where there are no doormen, and people are complaining about their packages being stolen. This is to take on that kind of problem. And then the delivery people go to a set of lockers and just leave a whole bunch of stuff there, rather than driving to all of these different residences, and then the residents complaining the stuff was stolen from. That's what it looks like, and you can see on the DOT website, the Go Locker program. Next one, I think, has a little bit more information. Yeah, the package locker is called Locker New York City. We'll be back to the curb and close to the building, placed on wider sidewalks, but they don't give you a number, to avoid blocking foot traffic. Transportation officials said dense neighborhoods with older buildings that are more likely to have secure mail rooms will be the priority. Let's think about if you live near those areas, the good thing or bad thing, but you have a higher priority. So think about that, and that gives you the website where you can go directly to it is on DOT. Next. And check the CB4 chair. I think the check heads, who is the head of the transportation committee at CB4. Anyway, this is ridiculous. Package lockers will be in the curb, should be on the curb lane, not on the insanely crowded sidewalks. Keep in mind, CB4 just got some painted extensions for their sidewalks are too crowded. Now to hear there's yet another thing going on the sidewalk, they're not happy. We look at check. how the delivery company puts them in the lockers. Yes, in the middle of the sidewalk.
Because right now they use the roadbed for the station.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Rather have them in road beds.
Yeah.
Side.
But even if they do it in the roadbed, how are they gonna get them to the locker? If they don't put the locker in the sidewalk and this roadbed as well. So it's not good for pedestrians anyway to look at it with any of the solutions. So that's a big question.
Is there any way for us to oppose they coming down here?
Are there pictures involved?
Yeah, I'm
Let's
sorry.
go back
Last
to.
And that's the thing.
It could be super handy in the right places. I mean, the question starts to become, is implementation is everything. Right, fine, it's all about like everything else in real estate. Location, location, location.
And that picture looks wonderful, but that's not every street.
I can't, off the top of my head, think of that can fit in and then not like change the traffic on the sidewalk.
That's a wide side.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I think Midtown has
Just think
to
about how
run
lovely
it.
that'll look right outside BNY Mellon.
that's totally what I'm thinking. And we have these at work, so.
Across the street from with the Target by Whole
Yeah,
Foods.
Uh-huh.
but you wouldn't be able to put those out there because they had to put ballers.
It's a great idea. I'm just surprised, I don't think it'd be a security issue where they close lockers at some of the airports and some of the bus terminals, but it's a good.
But again, the DOT is playing around, so as we start to get some pilot data, because there's nothing we can do before August 1st anyway.
Right.
It'll be very interesting to see where they actually select them to be and a little bit of how it works, because there'll be data collecting for the year. But I agree, we should apply in some way during the year,
Yeah, I mean, they'll definitely fill up.
unless there's one in a place that's really a problem. Definitely. Anyway, so just so you know, there are a lot of stipulations on it for things that can't be, where it can't be. And since we like to put things on the sidewalk, starting on August 1st as well, we're going to have food businesses like restaurants, bodegas, delis, groceries will no longer be able to put their trash out in bags, which may be a good thing, but they have to be in enclosed garbage trash containers with a lid. 30 to 96 gallons, and they all chain businesses. So keep in mind, it doesn't even have to be a food business if it's a chain business with more than 4 city locations. And they are going to be next to the buildings, not next to the curb, not in the street. They are going to be next to the buildings. So they ask for you, please, to store them inside your business if you can, but if you can't, put them outside and the carters will come and take them.
Right now, they're putting the bags outside, so isn't the cans is a lesser of two evils, correct? Wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
It's against the side, it's against the building. So now you're gonna have the black trash bags on the street side of you, and you're gonna have the fixed containers on the building side of you, and you're gonna walk between those when you're going down the street.
It'll hopefully help.
And I wish they could all be
It's gonna be hot, watch over the rats.
So again, it's something to keep an eye on, but again, it's another program starting in August 1st.
I mean,
Something to keep an eye out for, if it's, especially if it's in your area of the city to look at, be interested in getting your feedback, so we can decide how to move forward. This is a heads up, keep an eye out. But
at least they're
it's-
trying something with the rats. I mean, just trying,
They are, but we're gonna look at pedestrians, because we're a transportation committee.
Yeah, the rats are under quality.
So I have to worry about that, so I wanted to make people aware of something else been on the sidewalk.
Sorry.
And what else is coming out?
They're everywhere we are.
Now, for people who are complaining about the ferry system being too expensive and subsidized too much, keep in mind, the Rockaway is having a reserve program, so starting on July 1st, so this already did start. There, you can reserve a spot on any weekend Rockaway trip, and they leave from Pier 11, so if you want to do that. The cost for a reserve ticket is $10. The ticket that is not reserved is $4. So again, they have increased from the $2.75 to $4, which reduces the subsidy. But if they can have some reserved seats for people who want that privilege, they aren't subsidized at all. So that should be a positive for those people who are complaining about the usage of ferry.
It also will help them manage the demand better, because for people who are willing to pay for the higher amount, they will know if they need more boats, because what has happened over the past few years is they were a little surprised by their own success and a little dismayed at the 2 to 3 hour wait from Pier 11 to get on a boat.
So keep in mind, especially since this is coming into our district, a heads up that whether you like the reserved seats, then that's great. If you're concerned about subsidies, you're gonna find this is great. So that's just a notification. Next. There's been a lot of talk about the really large vehicles. And this is one of the child, and that's really, there is no sight line for children. There's no sight line for me on a child's height, if I'm seated. You go to the next one. If you look at bicycles, again, they're not visible from the kind of vehicles we're talking.
So what are they trying, what could be done?
What's the next
License plate.
This is, in fact, it's going to be a state law that's being looked at. Well, they wanted to show the site difference.
Okay.
And for me, I can tell you in Battery Park City, they're parked next to the curb cut. So when I go down, I always see these things towering over.
Monster truck. I know.
Is this like, so-
It's the same thing. It's frightening on the street.
But what are they trying to do, Betty?
Well, the state law that's being introduced, that is talking about lawmakers from Astoria, Queens, in fact, are bringing it up. And they're trying to increase the price of registration of these very large vehicles, which is pretty simple.
But I mean, I don't think, I mean, like, it's, I don't like it personally, but I don't think if somebody's getting, could afford one of those vehicles, another $100 to register the thing is not gonna make a difference.
Or no, it's not going to change anything for them.
The registration's already different.
As far as the amount of,
Right, it varies by state, and keep in mind, there are people promoting and saying they should be charged more for parking anywhere, because they really don't fit.
They are charged.
they are charged more.
Okay, registration is already more expensive, parking is already more expensive, and vehicles with a certain towing capacity and length are supposed to be commercial vehicles in New York State.
Yeah.
So, this is
They don't.
just whatever. Oh, I have a truck.
So is this like inclusive of like I'm thinking of black SUVs? Is that considered?
Yes, delays, yeah.
Yes, good. But again, the law, if it comes out, we'll take a look at it, but they're only talking about introducing it, so.
Are they talking about New York State or New York?
These are New York State representatives. These are legislators in Albany.
Because I would think that there would be a big pushback on this
There's a lot of people
in the rural
in the
areas,
rural areas that
where
need
it might be unnecessary.
Who will fight this?
Yes,
We'll fight it, but
and they already do.
Yeah, it's not gonna, if it's a new, it's
we
not.
really need a monster truck to do what they're doing. And trust me, I still live on a farm. They don't need anything that kind of.
They also don't need AK-47.
No, you don't.
Let's not argue this tonight.
This is what's going on in Albany. These are updates. Yeah, the talk, yeah. And this was simply going after the increase, the number of e-bikes that are being sold. And again, this is a national numbers. These aren't New York City or even New York State. And the numbers are going way up. So there is more conversation about them. Next, these are just updates. And this is what I'm talking about the Uni Pod, whether if you can get secure parking, excuse me, for your bikes or your privately owned stand-up e-scooters.
I saw that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, people probably seen it.
It's at the Holland Tunnel.
Yes, which is pretty amazing, and that's why the Port Authority is part and parcel of this.
What is that?
This is a Nudie Pod, this is where it takes bike parking inside, it's
Okay.
secured, because it's enclosed and sheltered. And we've had Uni, which is in fact, is Shabazz Stewart, you can see his name from his tweet, is the owner of Uni Pod. And they also do the bike battery charging stations and things, but he's branched out to lots of areas, big entrepreneur. But if you look at it, he's made a lot of headway at the Port Authority. And so it's very exciting. It's a hope that maybe they'll put one near the PAC. The Port Authority has now not only allowed one in New Jersey next to a PATH station, but now they're allowing one near the Holland Tunnel. This is all good news. Be nice if it was by the PATH Authority.
An office.
We've asked around, and I'll tell you the problem we've had. DOT does not like advertising.
And it's
That's
involved with advertising.
how they make their money, because they do not charge the parking people. This is a bid is involved, so you can see that they also credit a bid, and they are the ones picking up the cost. The Port Authority gave permission because it's on their space. The bid is picking up the cost of running the operation, and so there is no advertising. But the DOT has repeatedly refuse to let us put them on the street and anywhere, no matter how badly they're needed, because they will refuse to have advertising. And you can't put them in without advertising unless you can get a bid or someone to pick it up. But again, for
What's the
equity,
bid?
that's not
The
good.
business.
They just improved it.
For us, we have the Downtown Alliance.
So it would only be in certain neighborhoods like Flydye and ours. So if Rebecca wanted it, they're not covered by Downtown Alliance. If Battery Park City wanted it, they don't need a bid, but
Could we put these in pops?
With the business improvement district,
no.
all the properties.
Actually, they could go in
in
the
that
parking lot.
district.
They fit in the
They
parking.
do,
The parking
and then there's a,
Yeah.
like an organization.
Yeah.
They're,
So the,
they're
is, DOT says no, because they can't be advertised.
and increase the economic activity.
Yeah, no, we can put their parking lot, as long as there's no advertising.
That's the one. Got it.
They pay that.
Okay, go to the next one. This was, again, began to warn people as well. Starting in July, so already started, DOT and partners will tag abandoned and bicycles, what they define as abandoned, and remove them from public bike racks. So keep in mind, if you see, they could be in perfectly good condition. If you haven't been moved, and so there's a lot of complaints about that, saying, what if I'm on vacation and I just leave it somewhere? If you see these tags, take them off. It's 7 days from when this tag is placed. So if you see, why don't be nice, go down and just rip all the tags off. No, I was gonna suggest that, but that is what this is, and I think this may be worth opining on, because 7 days is really too short.
What
For
problem,
a profit, suitable bicycle.
what problem led to this?
There's somebody complaining that they
What
were
was the-
There are,
in the way of pedestrians.
Somebody abused the situation and then,
Well, what
there's only a limited number of bicycle parking, and there are a lot of abandoned bicycles as well.
But abandoned are different, and I go through that too, so you can see, you'll know the difference between abandoned and bicycles.
So they're tagging abandoned bikes.
No, they're tagging bikes that have been moved. So it's sort of like going in, and if you didn't move your car on an alternate side of the street parking, they can stamp it and tow you, because that's really what they're doing. They're saying they're taking it, the tag that they responded to by the NYPD, well, you know they're going to respond to these. They take your bike, they put it in the holding station of the police station for 30 days, and then they destroy it.
So, but if
That's
you're,
what this is.
if you're using your bicycle every single day and you park it in the same spot and they think it's a derelict bike, they'll put one of these on there and then you would clip it off.
Potentially, yes, but yes, you would know to take it off if you're there every day. It's for someone who's on vacation and doesn't really have any way to put it in their unit, in their apartment, who leaves it, stuff that's in the most
well,
trouble.
if somebody's on vacation, say, let's say they're after two, wouldn't there when some other person, other bicycle rider would need to be
Why
a
do people
space?
leave their cars on the street?
You can't leave a car on the street for a month or two. You can't leave a car. No, right, no, but then it should be towed, but I'm saying,
But it
Right.
gets towed.
I guess, too.
but it gets,
These will be taken within 7 days, they're gonna be destroyed within 30 days.
there's almost no streets in the city where there's no, like, at least one day where you have to move the car. So, I mean, obviously, people abuse, there's always gonna be abuse and fraud, but,
But there's a bike stand.
right, so 7 days may be too soon, but I mean, if somebody's away for a month or two, but they're taking,
This isn't a law, so
okay.
you have to look at it. Next one is notification, keeping in mind, this is F1 Center Street, so for those who come here as well. They put signs out too, and they also don't like bikes not being moved out of their bike racks. So be aware, if you use the bike racks here, make sure you move your bike, because they will, the Port Authority, the DCAS is also willing to just take your bike, so everyone's clamping down on bikes the way they don't do on cars, which is kind of crazy, but.
This is a question about like, why are people abandoning bikes? Like,
Well, these aren't abandoned bikes, these are usable bikes.
But you know, and the way this building does it, it's like at a certain time at night, they go out and put this on all the bikes that are still there. So anybody who's saying, like, I will have that on my bike when I go downstairs, you know, so anybody who is say working 2 to 10 instead of 9 to 5, they're gonna find them.
Yeah.
I mean.
but are we finding, so outside of Center Street, are we finding that, I don't know, like delivery drivers, like lose their will, they just leave there because it's cheaper?
Yes,
Like,
well, I've seen abandoned
Not
bikes, well, not here, but I've seen abandoned bicycle that
When
public
bandits
places
actually have.
all the time. all the time, and that remains, because there's still a chain, and nobody removes it. So maybe
And
it is
it's
a
a new
problem.
program, so I don't know about the whole.
Yeah,
We have people in Battery Park City who park their bikes and chain them into some of the public ones and then move them. Just didn't take the bike and take the bike.
So they just use this like public, like bikes or storage.
yes, and you remember, so most of you saw the bike shop that had
Fire?
in lithium ions, and there was a fire, and that has been officially closed, so that's because they didn't change their ways, so they found lots of batteries. Now, do I feel terrible? It's because of the kind of batteries that they're storing and how they're doing it. I have two lithium ions they're sitting in the room with, and I don't know how many are afraid of being on fire today.
But those were,
But I've lived with them forever.
but the lithium, I think they had like, it was like off-market lithium batteries.
No question, I'm saying, that though it's faulty, those shouldn't even be allowed.
So yours are top quality.
They go with the
But
scooter.
I think like everything else in life, to just say that lithium ion batteries are bad
Yeah.
is not true. It is about care and maintenance and not buying Bolex versions of them.
Yeah.
You just need to buy the real ones.
Yeah, so people get all upset about lithium ion. Keep in mind that the market is much bigger than the few that made grabbed the headlines. But this was a storefront that was abusing, and
Of course.
even after the fire, they are still abusing it. So that's they're reliving. Expanding the scooter share. This is more for Justine. She was complaining that scooter share, the stand-up that DOT has, it's really old, had the bumps. They're expanding it to a point where they're not good last mile mass transit. And this is to take the place and give an option of a way to get home from your subway stop, from your bus stop, from wherever. And Justine was complaining about, she had gone out to visit somebody and didn't realize she was stranded when she got there with mass transit. It's like, now what do I
They didn't
do?
have the dollar vans or anything like that?
Uh,
Maybe $2 vans.
And in fact, if you notice underneath that storefront, you'll see a little, because this is a blue van, but you can see there's a seat on that vehicle, and you're gonna say, what is it? There are stand-up that have for disabled and people with not good balance. There are seated versions. So don't think that's a motor scooter or a moped or anything. It really is a stand-up scooter that has a seat on it, which in Chicago, they mandate that a certain percent have seats on them for people who like to use them or need to use them.
So, Betty, is there any, drive, movement to make sure that anyone who uses these electric bicycles get driver's licenses? Because they don't know the
No.
rules of the road, right?
I think it's just you and me.
Oh,
Yeah, no. I can tell you by New York state law, they are considered bicycles or they're considered stand-up scooters or whatever they are. So they are not under motor vehicles in New York State.
yet they have, yet they have a motor, and then they share the road with everyone, and they don't.
Sidewalk.
Right, but
Or the sidewalk,
that's
or the
all
bike
that
lane.
they should
But-
be.
Yell at you because they don't.
I think that's a topic, Betty and I have talked about this, because there's an issue that in New York City, you can actually buy a motorized scooter that goes 40 miles an hour. They have a service center in,
It's not legal.
whether it's legal or not, they have a service center for it in Brooklyn. And so people are able to buy them in Manhattan or in Brooklyn. They're able to buy them in the 5 boroughs and they use it, whether it's legal or not.
There's like illegal mufflers and everything else. You know, they're done openly and they're not enforced.
So I am one of those people that believes.
I say we surveil them.
No.
Cameras.
I mean, they just need to be educated.
That's a matter of enforcement. As far as Eric's more broad concern about they have their e-bikes, that would be a state issue, and there has been talk, and I know some locations have in fact lowered the maximal speed to more like 15 miles an hour, which has its own risks, because if you're forcing them out among the cars to drive, why are you saying they can't control their speed any more than a car? Why not make cars not be able to go more than 15, 20 miles?
I usually don't see cars going down the wrong way, the wrong way down the street or the sidewalk, like kind of like the old Pac-Man.
Well, that's lack of enforcement too.
Okay, but you know something, you're right. but that's the reality that we live in today in our neighborhoods. And so,
And cars too. I mean, why they drive on the sidewalk?
listen, there are millions of things that cars do that are terrible, like, when they turn without stopping, but 99% of the time, I know that if I'm looking I don't have to look one way if I was coming down a one-way street, but I have to look four ways when I cross the street now because of the anarchy with the e-bikes and the delivery people. And that's, I mean, it's not my opinion, I mean, we see it all the time.
No, you're on data on your side, so.
Mm.
Yes, you have to look.
The theme from tonight seemed to be enforcement, because we've said that now like 15 times.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. It's on every single issue. That's always the answer.
We have a lot of
Anyway.
issues.
Yeah, for those who are looking for driverless vehicles,
No.
it just, you know, the Port Authority is testing them at shuttle at JFK Airport. So you may see them there.
Wasn't there an accident that happened, I read it some recently in some place in the United States with?
Hey, I just make announcements. Know what's going on. And in fact, for those, Amazon is now using their Zoo, their Zoo subsidiary. They are using all electric autonomous vehicles in Phoenix, which they already have autonomous taxis there anyway, so.
They also don't have pedestrians or bicycles.
Well, now you know why we don't have pedestrians.
Well, they do it in Pennsylvania, it's a big hub for it too. That's in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
Wait for the next site
Training
attack.
the knowledge of the autonomous driving is biased towards those spaces and not for cities where we live.
New York City is cleared for the first congestion tolls, so I know you all know that. We should be starting to see the infrastructure being put up, and that'll be interesting to see. Do we know where the plan is to put them? No. We'll find that.
There's gonna be, as there are politicians
Everywhere.
there's gonna be politicians that are gonna be, I wouldn't bank that it's definitely happening, but from what I'm reading of the politicians from the New Jersey and from the suburbs,
I'm very- The fact is, they're still going to install them unless the judge at the lawsuit says you must stop. I mean, but otherwise, they're still going to install them, but they still want to work under the assumption that they have an agreement they've signed with a time frame on it. So they're going to probably live up to that.
No interest in 2 years.
all I know is that
As far
these
as,
streets are pretty empty Sundays and nights and weekends
well, don't worry.
down here. Anyway.
In Utah and Virginia, again, with their road use charges, say there are other ways that more and more places are doing it. Various things, they just don't call it congestion pricing. What do they want to do? They want to price the cost of their infrastructure. Why? Because gas taxes they've relied on is generating less and less money. Well, people go to electric cars.
Are you just talking about tolling right now?
Because there are lots of systems people are doing for making money.
There's tolls everywhere. It's not like a new concept.
So people over there.
These are 4 miles.
West
You're
Virginia.
thinking of toll roads. They're talking about tolling, period. It'll be on your car and toll from the moment you first turn on the engine till the moment you turn it off. They're tolling your distance and charging by the mile.
And people in West Virginia gonna go for that?
It's already been passed in those states.
Already have gasoline, they're paying for it, but if they use electricity.
I'm telling you, Trent, you don't have to argue these bills, but they're not even.
I'm not arguing.
It's just to know there are many different ways being sought. It's not just New York City with congestion pricing. There are lots of things being done.
Maybe.
And in fact, if you look underlying infrastructure, President Biden is looking to do something which is going to be more of a national system. So again, keep your eyes open. There's lots going on in transportation right now. And it will continue. Next. Now let's get off the road and create another problem for why they need more money. The Lean Green Flags and Paris is starting to use, these are some places have them as a flying.
$300,000 for what I read.
Flying taxis, cheap, but anyway, they are starting in Paris in terms of getting ready for the Olympics. This is the model you're going to be seeing in Paris.
Jetson?
If you go to the next one, there are multiple versions.
Jetsons.
Yeah.
This is the one the FAA has already approved, and they have, the production line says 2025, they will start to become available. These will be about 300,000, but if you have lots of
Looking
people
forward
who
directions now.
can afford them, so The rules are going to, well, again, not only those issues, what about the airspace? Keep in mind, the New York City DOT just is in the process of changing a rule to allow you to set off a drone. You say, well, there's drones to me, but you're kidding me. So New York police are flying still, even with drones. But in fact, these are coming in the FAA.
But not lower than that.
What is it probably by?
No drones lower than that.
Yeah, okay, I'll read
There are
that.
too many crazies.
Solar, maybe?
What?
What is it powered
No,
by?
no, but I meant like what lifts it off the ground?
Has it worked?
Oh, these? I didn't.
It's kind of like a hovering thing.
Them up.
It's like a hovering, it's kind of like a drone.
It starts
So
like,
there's a lot of circle of white ends under it.
Yeah, that works.
it starts like the Flintstones. when
You know, you can almost, if you had it, one kind of magnet. and
It starts out like a hovercraft.
They have it in China.
Mhm.
Yeah, magnet.
For trains.
It's definitely, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever we saw in the cartoons from 50, 60, 70 years ago, that's now starting to, you know,
Like the Jetsons, yeah.
no, we're at the 1964 World's Fair, Betty, before it was even, how about the Get Smart, the shoe phone and those things, they were like just on, not even thought of as real things, and now they're.
They're seeing the.
Yes, well, since we
The
like
radio.
flying things that are electric, I did mention that Joby Aviation has also received a permit to fly their e-boats. So yeah, these things are kind of, they are they're almost more like, can't think of the name of the planes anymore that do it.
You know,
That land in the water.
Osprey, yes, they take off like a helicopter, but then they fly like an airplane. These, just gonna call them e-boats. But anyway, they do the same thing, they take off and then they fly horizontally, take off vertically.
Which kind of reminds me, as long as you're on that, there is a, Safer Aviation there's a public comment, I think we sent it out in the newsletter, I can't remember. But for year 6,
That's coming up in 2 slides.
okay, thank you.
This is the one that actually has contracts with United Airlines and Newark Airport. They are going to be taking off from Pier 6. But in fact, if you go to the next one, you'll see here's a heliport thing being put in. This and northern North Battery Park City, the area that's north of Chambers Street. It's somewhere in Boston. I can see easily outside my window. These are being put in everywhere. Why? Because as more people use these eco things, they need to have lots and lots of landing spaces. They expect New York City probably to have, Manhattan probably have 5 or 6 of
Are
them.
they gonna be as noisy as the helicopters?
They're electric.
that doesn't mean they won't be noisy. Like drones are super noisy.
They're not aiming, they're aiming not to be as noisy, and they're still gonna be noisy, because, you know, whatever. But they're aiming, yeah, but they're aiming not to be. So I used to work at Uber, and we actually had we were working on that heavily. Manhattan is actually a target because we already have so many helipads and all these high rises that are being built. And so they're trying to leverage that space as space that they can already land. And, you know, their target was executives would use this.
I
sort of
can
thing.
think of putting on some of those fancy, super high-end buildings, like with the rooftops, you know?
However, EDC has said that there was a ban on using rooftop heliports due to safety and security.
Okay.
I can tell you about the helicopters. In Chicago, it's done all the time, and I know those battles so well. Because the HVAC units, all the high rises are brought down by helicopters. So we have helicopters all the time around the city. So, the things in New York, yeah, they're the helicopters. But in fact, the hospitals use them for emergency deliveries as well. This was someone who wanted to land on top of the Children's Hospital, which was 2 blocks from where I lived, and so there were lots of people mobilized. They lost. But anyway, those have their own risks because there are people who have missed them and they've crashed into other buildings or landed on the sidewalk. That's not always so good. So these open spaces, I think in New York City are the only things that are going to be allowed to be viable. They're not flying amongst buildings. They had enough crashes here, they could be reliable. But nevertheless, for those who are concerned about Pier 25 and concerned about the taxis, keep in mind, Citigroup and those are going to be taking off from right by there, coming across to Pier 25 to get their executives to that building at the world headquarters. So yes, those are the elements. There's also the movement to have more integrating different systems together so you can plan your whole trip, no matter which mode you're using for which leg of the trip. So Via and Uber are working together, which of course I'm so sure you saw a lot of. Next. And yeah, next month you're out, so.
So if anybody is, forgot about the helicopters for Pier 6. There's a public hearing on July 12th. We sent the email out June 27th. It is the extension for Saker Aviation for to continue on a part-time, on a short-term basis before the next RFP starts. There's nothing really for us to say that we haven't already said. And because the public comment and public hearing is July 12th, it falls after transportation, before full board. We will not be opining or providing public testimony.
And what's kind of interesting about it is the pier they want to use is one they're going to be putting the blue waterways, so they're going to be doing the freight deliveries. How they're going to be working those is interesting and in the near future. The other thing about it was, if you look at the renewal, it was over 1 year. The Saker was doing it, and then 2 6-month renewals, which means they are looking at the adjustments. What's coming out, the e-vaults and things, what they expect. They're probably going to replace a lot of the helicopters. But again, those are all questions, and we know they're just searching for where's this going. And we don't know.
So they're like accommodating that potential future.
I think so with the very short term.
But
That's
you
not
know, watch it go there.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Third.
Lauren's getting stopped recording.
Actually, because my wife learned proper English.